In a world where the boundaries between reality and game mechanics had fused, society had transformed. Professions rooted in fantasy were now commonplace, and the discovery of ruins and secret realms had become an integral part of life. At a local academy, the excitement was palpable. A teacher, brimming with enthusiasm, addressed his class, urging them to prepare for the upcoming job transition ceremony. His voice resonated with excitement, fueling the energy in the room as students eagerly gathered their belongings, ready to experience a life-changing event. However, in stark contrast to the lively atmosphere, one student sat silently at the back of the classroom. His name was Lu Fan, and his demeanor stood out among the buzzing energy. While his classmates clamored to leave, he remained seated, his face etched with unease. Noticing this, the teacher approached him, concern flickering in his eyes. "Lu Fan, what's wrong? You're the top student in this class, you have nothing to worry about," the teacher reassured him. But Lu Fan appeared distracted, his gaze unfocused as if he were seeing something no one else could. Suddenly, a translucent screen materialized before his eyes, displaying vibrant text. "Congratulations! The Super Treasure Map system has been successfully activated." For a moment, Lu Fan was stunned, unable to process what had just occurred. The appearance of this mysterious system left him speechless. Before he could dwell on it further, the teacher's voice snapped him back to reality. "Lu Fan! Are you even listening to me?" the teacher barked, his patience wearing thin. Startled, Lu Fan quickly apologized, scrambling out of his seat. "I'm going now." "Sorry, sir," he blurted, hastily making his way out of the classroom. As he descended the stairs, his thoughts raced. A system? His mind whirled with questions. He muttered under his breath, "There's no way I could survive in a world like this without one." Despite his curiosity about its purpose, he decided to push those thoughts aside for now. Reaching the bottom of the staircase, Lu Fan steadied himself. First things first, he resolved. The job transition ceremony awaited, and it was too important to miss. Outside the academy building, a large crowd of students had already gathered. They stood before an elevated stage, where a dazzling object drew their attention, a massive crystalline structure that radiated an ethereal glow. "Is that the job transition crystal?" one student whispered, eyes wide with amazement. "I've never seen one before." "Same here," another added nervously, shifting their weight from one foot to the other. The murmurs grew louder until a commanding voice from the stage boomed across the courtyard. "Quiet," the speaker ordered, silencing the chatter instantly. All eyes turned to the stage, where the ceremony was about to begin, the anticipation in the air thick enough to cut with a blade. As Lu Fan navigated through the dense crowd, snippets of conversation buzzed around him. He passed by a student animatedly sharing his aspirations. "It'd be incredible if I awakened as a hidden combat professional," the student said, his voice brimming with excitement. "Imagine being powerful, admired by thousands." However, his companion wasn't so optimistic. With a scoff, he replied, "Stop dreaming. Hidden combat professionals? In our school? You've got better odds of winning the lottery." He snorted and added with a smirk, "If I end up with a life profession, I'll be begging my ancestors for mercy." Up on the stage, an elderly man stepped forward, his commanding presence drawing the crowd's attention. "Students, the job transition ceremony is about to begin," he announced, his voice clear and authoritative. "Joining me today is the priest who will oversee this year's transitions." The announcement sparked a wave of whispers among the students. They gazed at the priest with awe and curiosity. "That's the professional who manages job transitions?" someone murmured. "Look at his aura," another marveled. "It's so strong. Imagine awakening with an aura like that." While others were lost in admiration, Lu Fan quietly observed the priest. Even from a distance, he could sense the imposing presence of a true combat professional. His thoughts, however, were interrupted by a sudden notification from his system. "New skill acquired, Eye of Appraisal." The unexpected message left Lu Fan momentarily stunned. "Eye of Appraisal," he muttered. Without hesitation, he activated the skill. A translucent interface appeared before him, displaying a glowing icon hovering over the priest. With growing curiosity, Lu Fan tapped on it, and a detailed profile of the priest materialized in front of him. "So, this skill lets me see a person's stats and attributes," Lu Fan thought, his nerves easing slightly as he realized the utility of his newfound ability. Meanwhile, the student's attention shifted to a particular individual in the crowd. Tall, confident, and exuding natural charisma, he stood out among his peers. "That guy must have insane attributes," one student commented enviously. "Look at the way he carries himself. He's a shoo-in for a combat profession." "I heard job transitions are mostly random," another replied. "But yeah, better stats do increase the chances. And he's not just strong, he's ridiculously handsome." Cheers and whispers filled the air as the priest began the ceremony. With practiced ease, the priest raised his hands, invoking his skills. The crowd fell silent as the glowing job transition crystal at the center of the stage began to radiate a mesmerizing light. The tall student stepped forward, his face brimming with confidence as the priest focused his energy on him. The crystal's glow intensified, bathing the stage in its ethereal light, signaling that the transition process had begun. Every pair of eyes was fixed on the stage, anticipation and envy thick in the air. The job transition crystal suddenly flared with a brilliant light, producing a massive, swirling ball of fire that crackled with intense heat. Gasps and murmurs swept through the crowd as students stared in awe. "He's a mage," someone exclaimed, pointing at the glowing sphere. "Not just any mage, he can cast fireballs." "Zhang Tao really became a combat professional," another shouted, their voice tinged with both envy and admiration. The name Zhang Tao echoed through the crowd as the newly transitioned student stepped forward with a smug smile. Raising his hand, he conjured a small, blazing fireball that hovered above his palm. The students erupted into cheers and whispers. "Zhang Tao is incredible. He's destined for greatness," one student gushed. "Yeah, his future is as bright as that fireball," another agreed. "If I were him, I wouldn't let anyone get near me. I'd totally cling to his leg," someone joked, causing laughter among the group. Meanwhile, Lu Fan stood silently, his gaze fixed on the stage. Awe mixed with a hint of anxiety flickered in his eyes. Once someone becomes a combat professional, they can leave behind the mundane life of an ordinary person, he murmured to himself, marveling at the transformation. The elder on stage, however, was far from pleased. His stern expression deepened as he slammed his staff against the ground. "Enough," he barked, his voice cutting through the commotion. "Quiet down and let's continue the ceremony." Reluctantly, the students fell silent as the next candidates were called up. One by one, they stepped forward to face the crystal, their fates unfolding before their peers. A young man approached and completed his transition, a soft green glow surrounding him. "I'm a herbalist," he declared, his voice filled with pride. "I'll carry on my family's legacy." The next participant, a bulky, muscular student, wasn't as lucky. "A tailor," he grumbled, his voice laced with frustration. "This can't be right. I don't even like sewing." A thin, nervous student followed. As the crystal completed his transition, his face fell. "A miner," he stammered, trembling. I don't want this." Standing on the sidelines, Lu Fan observed the proceedings, his thoughts racing. "So, combat professions really are rare," he mused, his expression thoughtful. "Most people end up with life professions instead. It's clear that awakening as a combat professional opens the door to limitless opportunities." He turned his gaze back to the crowd, noting the stark contrast between the students. Those who had transitioned into combat roles were radiant with joy, basking in the admiration of their peers. In stark contrast, those who awakened life professions wore expressions of disappointment, their shoulders slumped under the weight of dashed hopes. For them, Lu Fan thought, awakening as a life professional often means resigning to a life of mediocrity. As his mind lingered on this harsh reality, a voice interrupted his thoughts. The student in front of him turned around and, with a faint smile, said, "Even so, it's still not the worst outcome." The comment caught Lu Fan off guard, leaving him momentarily speechless. The boy sighed and leaned closer to Lu Fan, muttering, "Did you hear about Li Ping from Class 3? His family's already struggling to make ends meet, and he got stuck with the most expensive enhancement profession. It's practically worse than a life profession. At least life professions come with a usable skill." Lu Fan's gaze instinctively shifted toward a boy standing off to the side, his shoulders slouched and his face clouded with despair. Li Ping, the student in question, seemed overwhelmed by the weight of his newfound burden. A cold chill ran down Lu Fan's spine as he glanced back at the stage. His own family's financial situation wasn't great either, and he couldn't shake the unsettling thought of what might happen if he ended up in a similar position. Before he could dwell on it further, the sound of his name being called snapped him out of his thoughts. "Lu Fan," the elder bellowed, his voice echoing across the courtyard. Startled, Lu Fan raised his hand hastily. "Here. I'm here," he called back, his voice slightly shaky. Taking a deep breath, he made his way toward the stage. As he climbed the steps, scattered whispers followed him. "Hey, isn't he kind of handsome?" a female student murmured, nudging her friend. "I wonder what profession he'll get." Reaching the center of the stage, Lu Fan found himself standing before the glowing job transition crystal. His heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. No point in being nervous now, he told himself. Whatever happens, happens. The priest began chanting, his voice low and resonant as he activated his skills. Energy swirled around the crystal, and its glow intensified. Lu Fan watched intently as the crystal came alive, radiating a powerful light. Suddenly, an eerie image appeared within its depths, a single, piercing dragon's eye that seemed to look directly at him. The ground beneath the stage began to rumble, causing gasps of alarm to ripple through the crowd. "What's going on? Is this an earthquake?" a student shouted, gripping their friend's arm for balance. Before anyone could answer, a brilliant beam of light shot down from the heavens, enveloping Lu Fan in its radiant glow. The students shielded their eyes, squinting against the brightness. As the light faded, an enormous dragon materialized behind Lu Fan, its scales glistening like molten gold and its presence utterly commanding. "Look," someone exclaimed. "Lu Fan's job transition summoned a dragon." "That's insane," another student added, their voice trembling with excitement. "This kind of phenomenon only happens with hidden professions." "Wait, a hidden profession? Are you serious?" someone else asked, eyes wide with disbelief. Meanwhile, a female teacher standing at the edge of the courtyard hurriedly pulled out her communicator and called Mr. Lee, Lu Fan's homeroom teacher. "Mr. Lee, your class has produced the school's first hidden profession. Can you believe it?" Mr. Lee's voice crackled over the line, filled with awe and speculation. If that's true, and Lu Fan transitions into one of the strongest hidden professions, like a dragon blood warrior or a dragon language mage, he could become a pivotal figure in the Dragon Kingdom's history. He might even rival the legends. The dragon hovering above Lu Fan roared thunderously, its voice shaking the air and sending waves of awe through the gathered students. "It's been 10 years since someone became a dragon blood warrior," Mr. Lee continued, his tone reverent. "And that person is now the Dragon Kingdom's greatest expert," the female teacher added, her eyes shining with anticipation as she gazed at Lu Fan. Could he be next? On the stage, Lu Fan stood motionless, the dragon's presence behind him casting a shadow over the awestruck crowd. Mr. Lee and the gathered crowd held their breath as all eyes fixated on Lu Fan, waiting to see what profession would emerge from such a spectacular display. Meanwhile, the massive dragon in the air let out a deafening roar that shook the earth. Without warning, it swooped down toward Lu Fan in a blur of golden scales, its dive triggering an explosion of light and force that sent shockwaves rippling across the stage. Students screamed in alarm, their hands shielding their faces from the blinding light. On stage, Lu Fan flinched instinctively, throwing his arms up to protect himself from the impact. The dragon's immense presence seemed to overwhelm the area, leaving many frozen in awe and fear. The priest and the elder, alarmed by the chaos, rushed toward Lu Fan. The elder reached him first, gripping his arm firmly. "Quickly! What's your profession?" he demanded, his voice sharp with urgency. "Are you a dragon blood warrior? Or perhaps a dragon language mage?" Lu Fan hesitated, his face pale as he avoided the elder's piercing gaze. Taking a deep breath, he bit his lip before muttering, I'm a dragon tamer." For a moment, there was silence. Then, the elder's expression twisted in disbelief, and Mr. Lee's brows furrowed deeply. "A dragon tamer?" the elder repeated, his voice rising with incredulity. "After all that spectacle? That grand scene? And you ended up as a dragon tamer?" The disappointment in his tone was unmistakable. He shook his head, muttering bitterly, "Of all the hidden professions, why the most useless one?" His words cut like a blade, leaving Lu Fan standing there, shoulders slumped under the weight of their expectations. After the job transition ceremony concluded, Lu Fan wandered the streets of Zhong City, his footsteps slow and aimless. The Old Town district stretched before him, its narrow alleys bustling with life, but he barely noticed the activity around him. His focus was entirely on the glowing screen hovering before him, the system interface only he could see. His eyes scanned the information displayed, his mind replaying the events of the ceremony. The weight of the elder's disappointment and the murmurs of the students echoed in his ears. "You're destined for mediocrity," one student had said, their words biting as they dismissed him. "Humans can't possibly tame creatures as powerful as dragons." Another had nodded in agreement. "Sure, it's a hidden class," they had sneered, "but it's the weakest one in terms of actual strength. What's the point of a title if it can't deliver results?" Lu Fan sighed deeply, the memory stinging like a fresh wound. His gaze hardened as he stared at the system screen. Though the doubts of others weighed on him, a flicker of resolve sparked in his eyes. If the system chose him as a dragon tamer, there had to be a reason. He just needed to figure it out. When one of the students overheard the conversation about dragon tamers being considered the weakest, he turned to the person next to him for confirmation. "Isn't dragon tamer still classified as one of the 3 major hidden professions, alongside dragon blood warrior and dragon language mage?" he asked skeptically. The other student nodded but added with a smirk, "It is, technically. But what's the point? Nobody can even find dragons, let alone tame them. Honestly, it'd be better to choose something like a summoner. At least they can call for creatures that actually show up." Meanwhile, the elder on stage, recovering from his initial shock, attempted to console Lu Fan. Patting his shoulder, he offered a thin smile. "Well, at least you've awakened a hidden class," he said. "Dragon tamers have limitless potential. Who knows? Maybe you'll manage to tame some lesser dragons and still achieve great power." Lu Fan's expression remained grim. Shaking his head, he replied bitterly, "Limitless potential? A dragon tamer without a dragon is nothing but a joke. And even if I somehow found lesser dragons, they're just ferocious beasts. They could never compare to real dragons." His voice dropped as he continued, "In the entire 800-year history of the Dragon Kingdom, there have been sightings of dragons, but not once has there been a dragon tamer who actually tamed one. Even the strongest humans are like ants before the might of a true dragon. Trying to tame one? It's an impossible dream, nothing more." Lu Fan sighed, his gaze falling to the hidden system interface floating before him. Swiping at the screen, he muttered to himself, "Without a dragon tamer can't unlock skills, let alone grow stronger. What's the point of potential if it's locked behind something unattainable?" His shoulders slumped further as thoughts of his aunt weighed heavily on him. She had sacrificed so much, working tirelessly to ensure he could attend school. Yet now, with this so-called hidden profession, he felt powerless to give her the better life she deserved. Lost in his thoughts, Lu Fan hardly noticed his surroundings until he arrived at a familiar street. The scent of freshly steamed buns wafted through the air, bringing him back to reality. Glancing up at the sign, he realized he'd unconsciously walked home. Taking a deep breath, Lu Fan straightened himself and forced a smile onto his face. Pushing open the door to the modest bun shop, he called out cheerfully, "Auntie, I'm home." Inside, his aunt, Han Ki, was busy arranging a tray of piping hot buns. She looked up at the sound of his voice, her face lighting up with joy. "Lu Fan, you're back," she exclaimed warmly. The aroma of the meal she had prepared filled the room as she motioned for him to sit. Despite the heaviness in his heart, Lu Fan's smile widened, knowing he couldn't let his worries dampen her happiness. For now, he would set aside his doubts and cherish this moment of comfort and familiarity. Lu Fan was caught off guard when Han Ki greeted him with an enthusiastic hug, her joy evident in her voice as she exclaimed, "You're back." Before he could respond, she clasped his arm and eagerly led him to the dining table. Her smile was radiant as she said, "Today was your big day. Your job transition must have gone well." As they sat down, Han Ki leaned forward with anticipation. "So? What profession did you awaken?" she asked. Lu Fan hesitated, his shoulders drooping as he struggled to form an answer. His expression turned somber, and Han Ki noticed immediately. Concern flickered in her eyes, but she quickly spoke up to reassure him. "It's okay, you know. Even if you didn't awaken as a combat professional, that's fine by me. I'd just worry if you were out there fighting dangerous battles every day." Before she could finish, Lu Fan cut her off with a quiet, "No, it's not that." His words faltered as he confessed, I awakened as a dragon tamer." His gaze dropped to the table, unable to meet hers. "But it's a profession that's practically useless without a dragon." To his surprise, Han Ki didn't react with shock or disappointment. Instead, she broke into a warm, genuine smile. Rising from her seat, she walked over and hugged him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. "A dragon tamer? That's wonderful," she said brightly. "It means you're incredibly strong, even if you don't see it yet." Her voice was steady, filled with unshakable confidence. "No matter what, I'll support you. If you decide to pursue college, I'll do everything I can to help you succeed. And if you don't want to, you can stay here and run the bun shop with me." Lu Fan felt his chest tighten with emotion. Her unwavering support and kind words filled him with gratitude. A small smile tugged at his lips as he said softly, "Thank you, Auntie." Han Ki clapped her hands together cheerfully and said, "Enough worrying for now. Let's eat." She gestured to the feast she had prepared. Lu Fan's eyes widened as he took in the sheer amount of food. This is way too much. How am I supposed to finish all this?" Not long after, Lu Fan found himself back in his small room, lying face first on his bed. As he stared at the ceiling, his thoughts drifted to Han Ki. Her hard-working hands flashed in his memory, and he sighed deeply. "She's only 26, he muttered to himself. Despite pouring years of effort into her life profession, she's still stuck living an ordinary life. She deserves so much better. Lu Fan's resolve grew as he stared at the system interface hovering faintly in his peripheral vision. For her sake, and his own, he would find a way to make his seemingly useless profession matter. Determined to change his fate, Lu Fan clenched his fists, staring at the ceiling with frustration. "I can't just accept this," he muttered, his voice trembling with emotion. "Being a dragon tamer, it's supposed to be a real hidden profession, but only if I can actually find a dragon." His frustration boiled over, and he slammed his fist against the mattress. I refuse to live like this. There has to be a way. As his thoughts spiraled, something unexpected caught his attention. A soft chime echoed in his mind, and the system's interface appeared before him. Congratulations. You've unlocked your first feature. A treasure map has been sent. Lu Fan's eyes widened in disbelief. A god-tier treasure map? On the very first day, he muttered, his voice filled with surprise. The realization hit him like a lightning bolt. Of course. The system is called the Super Treasure Map System. That's what it said when it activated. Excitement surged through him as he opened the chest that had materialized alongside the notification. He paused, recalling how he'd only tested the system's appraisal function earlier that day and hadn't explored its true potential. The system's voice chimed in again, providing an explanation. Treasure maps are divided into 4 levels: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and god tier. 3 identical lower-level maps can be combined into one higher-level map. Additionally, you will receive a treasure map every day, each corresponding to a randomly assigned level and location tied to your profession. Lu Fan read the explanation intently, his mind racing. Treasures tied to his profession? Could this be the key to unlocking the potential of a dragon tamer? When he clicked on the chest, a map appeared, displaying a marked location. A notification informed him. Today's treasure map, God tier. Location, stone plains near the mountain range. Danger level, 10. Lu Fan studied the map closely, his fingers tracing the outline of the area. The stone plains, it's not that far from Zhonghai City. If I catch the last suburban bus tonight, I can get there by dawn. Resolve flashed in his eyes as he closed the system screen. He stood up, a new determination swelling within him. If I give up now, I'll spend my whole life struggling at the bottom of society. I won't even be able to repay Auntie Han Ki for everything she's done for me. I can't let that happen. With his mind set, Lu Fan quickly began preparing for his journey, ready to embrace whatever challenges awaited him on the stone plains. This was his chance to prove that being a dragon tamer wasn't a curse, but a hidden blessing waiting to be uncovered. The first light of dawn broke over the bun shop, where Han Ki stirred awake. Stretching and rubbing her eyes, she stepped into the kitchen, expecting to find Lu Fan asleep in his room. But her steps faltered when she noticed a neatly folded letter sitting on the dining table. Curious and slightly uneasy, Han Ki picked up the letter and glanced toward Lu Fan's bedroom. The bed was empty. Lu Fan, she called out, but the house was eerily silent. Her gaze shifted back to the letter, and her heart tightened as she unfolded it. In the letter, Lu Fan explained his sudden departure. He wrote that he was heading to the stone plains near the mountains, convinced it might hold the key to rewriting the fate of a dragon tamer. He urged her not to worry and promised he would return safely. His words resonated with determination, but they couldn't dispel the shadow of worry that crept over Han Ki as she clutched the letter to her chest. Meanwhile, miles away, a bus rattled along the winding roads leading out of Zhonghai City and toward the mountain range. Lu Fan sat near the window, the rolling scenery flashing by as his thoughts churned. He replayed the message he left behind, telling Han Ki to wait for his return and that he would do everything in his power to secure a brighter future for both of them. The bus came to a screeching halt at its final stop, and Lu Fan stepped off into the crisp morning air. He glanced at the map displayed on his system screen, noting that his destination lay just ahead. Determination hardened his features as he gripped the straps of his pack. I promised her, he murmured to himself. I'll make sure we have the life we deserve. As Lu Fan moved toward the marked location, he noticed a group of 3 individuals following him off the bus. Their steps echoed his, and their gazes were sharp and calculating. He tightened his grip on his bag, uneasy but unwilling to confront them outright. His unease turned to alarm when he overheard snippets of their conversation. They were planning to ambush him and steal any valuable materials he might find. Lu Fan's heart pounded, but he kept his pace steady, muttering under his breath. One guy asked if he wanted to go together, but Lu Fan ignored him. In this wilderness, murder and robbery are as common as breathing. The 3 strangers blocked his path, their expressions smug and predatory. One, a wiry man with a crooked grin, leaned forward menacingly. Have you made up your mind yet? He sneered. Lu Fan instinctively reached for the dagger strapped to his waist, his hand trembling but firm. No thanks, stay back, he shouted, his voice wavering but loud enough to show he wouldn't go down without a fight. The woman in the group chuckled, blowing him a mocking kiss. Relax, sweetheart, she cooed before turning away. Her companions followed, their laughter echoing behind them. We'll see you around. Lu Fan's jaw tightened as he watched them retreat. Anger flared within him, and he muttered, despicable bastards. He adjusted his grip on the dagger, his knuckles white. A bitter sigh escaped him as he trudged forward. Even in the wilderness, where danger lurks at every turn, it's safer than being stabbed in the back by people like them, he mused aloud. His eyes burned with frustration as he stared at the rugged landscape ahead. Without strength, life is nothing more than a fleeting shadow, he muttered. Easily swept away by the winds of fate. But I won't let that be my story. With renewed resolve, Lu Fan pressed on, his every step echoing his determination to carve a new path for himself, no matter how perilous the journey. Glancing at the map displayed on his system interface, Lu Fan squinted at the faintly glowing marker indicating his destination. I need to move quickly, he muttered, feeling the urgency in his chest. Shortly after setting out, a faint rustling noise reached his ears. Instinctively, he crouched and ducked behind a nearby bush. Peering through the thick foliage, he spotted a herd of level 8 powerhorn horses grazing serenely in the open field ahead. Lu Fan's breath hitched. He knew that these creatures, though not aggressive by nature, would retaliate fiercely if disturbed. At his current level, 10 without any active skills, he wouldn't stand a chance against even one of them, let alone an entire herd. A cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Shaking his head, he muttered, "Forget it. It's not worth the risk." He carefully backed away from the bush, ensuring not to make any sudden noises, and veered onto an alternate path. As the grassy plains stretched endlessly around him, Lu Fan felt far from reassured. His surroundings grew eerily quiet, broken only by the faint rustle of wind and distant animal calls. With every step, he became more alert. The ground was dotted with level 7 giant horned antelopes, their bulky forms grazing lazily, but their large, spiraling horns gleamed menacingly in the sunlight. Lu Fan gulped, his voice a low mutter. So much for a safer route. It doesn't feel safe at all. His eyes darted nervously from one antelope to the next as he carefully maneuvered between them. I should be close, he murmured, checking the system map once more. Just a little. His sentence was abruptly cut off when his foot landed on something soft and slimy. A loud, agonized croak shattered the silence. Lu Fan's heart sank as he looked down to see a squished frog writhing underfoot. He froze. The grazing antelopes, startled by the sudden noise, turned their attention toward him. Their glowing eyes locked onto his trembling figure. One let out a guttural bellow, and the rest followed suit, their hooves stomping the ground in sync. "Oh, no," Lu Fan whispered, his face pale. Without another second to think, he bolted. The thunder of hooves behind him sent waves of panic coursing through his body as the herd charged in his direction. "Damn it," he cursed. "I just had to step on that frog." His lungs burned as he sprinted, dodging low branches and thick underbrush in a desperate attempt to lose the stampeding creatures. The ground quaked beneath him, each tremor a reminder of how close they were. Spotting a small ridge to his side, Lu Fan made a split-second decision. He threw himself to the ground, rolling into the grass and out of their path. A sharp jolt of pain shot through him as he hit the uneven terrain, but he gritted his teeth and stayed low. Peering back cautiously, he gasped. The ground where the frog once sat was now a crater, pulverized by the sheer force of the antelope's charge. Among the rubble, a pair of small frog legs protruded pitifully. "That could have been me," Lu Fan whispered, his voice trembling. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he let out a shaky laugh tinged with despair. "If I can't even deal with a skittish giant horned antelope, what hope do I have? Missing my chance out here might seal my fate just like that poor frog." Clenching his fists, he forced himself to stand, brushing off the dirt from his clothes. "No," he said, a spark of determination lighting his eyes. "I won't let it end like this." With renewed resolve, Lu Fan trudged forward, keeping an even sharper eye on his surroundings. The path was treacherous, but he had no choice but to push on. As Lu Fan trudged forward, his system suddenly pinged with a notification, breaking the silence of the wilderness. His heart raced as he read the message. He had reached the designated treasure map location. "This is it," he exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement. His eyes sparkled as they landed on a faintly glowing rock ahead. Approaching it cautiously, he scanned his surroundings for any potential threats. Satisfied that the area was clear, he stepped closer and examined the peculiar rock. Just beneath it, nestled in a hollow, lay an extraordinary object, a black egg, smooth and glossy, emanating a faint, otherworldly aura. Lu Fan's breath hitched. "A dragon egg," he whispered, awe and disbelief blending in his tone. His hands trembled as he gently touched its surface. "This is it," he murmured, his voice growing more resolute. "The treasure that could change everything for a dragon tamer." Before he could fully process the gravity of the moment, a sharp cracking noise pulled his attention back to the egg. Jagged lines spread across its shell, and Lu Fan's eyes widened in realization. "It's hatching," he gasped. The dragon's birth was imminent. Just as anticipation surged within him, a faint rustling noise came from the bushes behind him. Lu Fan's body tensed, and he immediately drew his novice cleaver, a plain but reliable weapon he had carried since his transition. His eyes darted toward the source of the disturbance. So much for smooth sailing, he muttered, gripping his weapon tightly. The underbrush parted, revealing a sleek, feral creature with gleaming red eyes, a bloodthirsty gray fox. Its growl was low and guttural, a warning that it was not to be trifled with. Lu Fan recognized the beast instantly and cursed under his breath. The fox lunged without warning, its sharp teeth sinking into the edge of his cleaver. Lu Fan gritted his teeth as he pushed back, trying to free his weapon from the creature's vice-like grip. The fox snarled, its strength almost overpowering his own. Not today. Lu Fan shouted, summoning every ounce of energy he had. With a battle cry, he twisted his cleaver and managed to force the fox off balance. The beast was flung to the ground with a yelp, skidding across the dirt before scrambling to its feet. Panting, Lu Fan quickly pulled up the system's interface to assess his adversary. The information flashed across the screen. Bloodthirsty gray fox. Skills. Triple claw strike, a swift 3-hit combo with devastating speed. Bloodthirst, boosts attack power as the fox grows more injured. Lu Fan's hands tightened around his weapon as he stared at the snarling beast. Of course, it couldn't be easy, he muttered through gritted teeth. But if I'm going to survive this, I'll need to end it before it gets stronger. Lu Fan stared at the information displayed on the system interface. The bloodthirsty gray fox's abilities made his heart sink. Skills. Triple claw strike, a rapid 3-hit combo designed to inflict severe bleeding. Bloodthirst recovery, regenerates health proportionate to the blood loss of its target. Lu Fan clenched his jaw, his mind racing. The combination of those skills meant the fox could wear him down and heal itself simultaneously, a deadly cycle he had no reliable way to counter. He cast a glance at the dragon egg behind him, its cracks deepening as faint tremors rippled across its surface. Hope flickered within him. If I can just hold out until the dragon hatches, maybe I can use dragon taming, he muttered. But his fleeting optimism was shattered by a blur of motion. The bloodthirsty gray fox lunged at him with startling speed, and Lu Fan barely had time to react. Instinctively, he raised his arm to block the attack. The fox's claws raked his forearm, drawing deep lines of crimson as he stumbled backward. Damn it, he hissed through gritted teeth. The searing pain made it clear, he couldn't afford to drag this out. He had to deal with the fox before it could exploit its bloodthirst recovery. The fox crouched, its muscles coiling like a spring. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed as he braced himself. It's preparing for the triple claw strike, he muttered, trying to calm his breathing. I've got one shot to stop it. The fox pounced, slashing with ferocity. Lu Fan raised his weapon just in time to block the first strike. His arms trembled under the force of the blow. One down, he murmured, his voice taut with focus. The second attack came even faster, and Lu Fan gritted his teeth as he parried it with a desperate swing of his cleaver. He staggered, feeling his strength wane. 2. The final strike was a blur. With all his remaining agility, Lu Fan twisted his body, narrowly evading the blow. The fox's claws sliced through the air, missing him by mere inches. Now! Lu Fan roared, pouring every ounce of strength into his counterattack. His cleaver came down in a powerful arc, slamming into the fox's side. A spray of blood erupted as the beast yelped and collapsed onto the ground, writhing in pain. Without hesitation, Lu Fan drove his weapon downward again, pinning the fox to the dirt. Panting heavily, he pulled his cleaver free, watching as the fox's movement stilled. The system chimed with a notification. Bloodthirsty gray fox defeated. Reward, 120 XP. Lu Fan let out a shaky breath, his body trembling from exhaustion. I did it, he muttered, glancing back at the dragon egg. The cracks on its surface grew wider, a faint glow emanating from within. Lu Fan exhaled heavily, his chest rising and falling as he tried to calm his nerves. Finally dealt with it, he muttered, his eyes briefly shifting to the lifeless body of the bloodthirsty gray fox. Before he could fully relax, a sharp laugh pierced the quiet air, sending a chill down his spine. Well, you actually managed to take it down, a raspy voice sneered. Lu Fan turned, his expression darkening as the group of robbers emerged from the shadows. The old man leading them clapped mockingly, his grin revealing crooked teeth. Impressive work, kid, he said, his tone laced with insincerity. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed. You've been following me this whole time, he accused, gripping his weapon tightly. I already told you, I'm not interested in joining your little gang. The woman in the group waved her hand dismissively, her smile deceptively sweet. Relax, handsome. No need to get all worked up, she purred. We just wanted to see if you were lying to us. Lying? Lu Fan growled, his jaw tightening. The old man chuckled, his eyes glinting with amusement. You said you were a summoner, didn't you? Yet, here you are, fighting tooth and nail with no skills to back you up. Makes one wonder. Lu Fan's grip on his cleaver faltered momentarily, but he quickly masked his unease. Without a word, he kicked the bloodthirsty gray fox's corpse toward them, the carcass landing with a dull thud at their feet. If it's the fox's fur you want, take it. Now leave me alone. The old man crouched, gripping the fox by its tail and inspecting it with a smirk. This? Worth maybe 80 dragon coins at best, he scoffed. His grin widened as his gaze shifted back to Lu Fan. But that's not what we're after, is it? Lu Fan stiffened, his blood running cold as he caught the old man's lingering gaze. It wasn't on him, it was on the dragon egg behind him, still faintly glowing as cracks continued to form along its surface. Bastards, Lu Fan spat, realization dawning on him. You saw me searching for it? The old man stood, his expression turning sinister. Boys, let's not waste any more time. Get him. Lu Fan barely had a moment to react before the muscular brute and the sly woman charged at him. The man rushed forward like a bull, while the woman drew a thin, gleaming blade and pointed it at him with a mocking pout. Such a shame, she cooed, her eyes gleaming with malice. You're too handsome to die here. Lu Fan gritted his teeth, raising his cleaver defensively as he prepared for the inevitable clash. The muscular man grinned victoriously as he grabbed the dragon egg, his large hands cradling it like a prized trophy. What a beautiful egg, the old man marveled, his voice filled with awe as he leaned closer for a better look. Lu Fan's heart raced, panic and desperation fueling his thoughts. No, he shouted, his voice breaking with emotion. That egg is my only chance to turn my life around? He clenched his fists, trembling with rage and helplessness. Just as Lu Fan prepared to lunge forward, a sudden cracking sound silenced everyone. The egg in the muscular man's hand splintered, fine cracks spreading rapidly across its glossy black surface. His grip tightened in shock, but before he could react further, the shell shattered completely. From within the fragments, something dark and swift shot out, moving too fast for their eyes to follow. The robbers froze, staring upward in disbelief. Against the dim light, a shadowy silhouette loomed above them, its form both majestic and terrifying. What is that thing? The woman stammered, her voice shaking. Lu Fan, however, stood rooted in place, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. It's a dragon, he whispered, almost in disbelief. The creature above them was unmistakable, a black dragon, its scales shimmering ominously. The dragon let out a guttural roar and dove toward the robbers with breathtaking speed. The old man, regaining his composure, quickly hurled a potion bottle at the creature. Get away, beast, he barked, his voice trembling with both anger and fear. The dragon tilted its body gracefully, dodging the bottle with an elegance that belied its size. As it maneuvered, the muscular man seized his chance, raising his fist to strike. But before he could swing, the dragon let out another ferocious roar, its aura exploding outward like a tidal wave. In an instant, the man's body was shredded to pieces, the force of the dragon's power leaving only his severed head tumbling to the ground. The old man's face turned pale as he stared in horror at the bloodied remains of his companion. What is this monster? He stammered, his voice barely audible. The black dragon's piercing gaze shifted to the old man, its eyes glowing with an ominous light. No, the old man shouted, stumbling backward. He turned frantically to the woman. Do something. Help me. Meanwhile, Lu Fan stood paralyzed, his mind reeling. Even freshly hatched, it's this strong, he murmured in disbelief. No wonder no one can tame a dragon. Their power is unmatched. The woman, overhearing Lu Fan's mutterings, snapped her head toward him. Wait, did you just say this is a dragon egg? She demanded, her voice tinged with panic. Before she could press further, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air. Her eyes darted toward the source, and her face twisted in terror as she saw blood spraying across the ground. The old man lay motionless in a crimson pool, his body mangled beyond recognition. The black dragon casually plucked pieces of eggshell from its teeth with its claws, as if the carnage it had caused was of no consequence. Its head rose slowly, and its unrelenting gaze locked onto the woman. Her entire body trembled uncontrollably as she took a step back, her expression frozen in pure horror. For the first time, she realized that she wasn't just facing a creature of immense power, she was standing before death itself. Lu Fan didn't hesitate as he shoved the woman aside, her startled cry echoing as she hit the ground with a thud. Standing firm, he glared at her, his voice cold and resolute. You dungeon robbers have no honor, he declared. For daring to steal what's rightfully mine, you've sealed your fate. The black dragon, sensing the shift in Lu Fan's demeanor, growled lowly, its gaze flicking between him and the robbers. As Lu Fan darted toward the dragon, it tensed, its wings twitching in readiness. But instead of attacking, Lu Fan raised his hand, and a brilliant light enveloped him as he activated his dragon-taming technique. The dragon froze, momentarily blinded by the radiant aura emanating from Lu Fan. Its eyes narrowed, both intrigued and bewildered. The woman, still on the ground, watched in shock, her voice trembling. Who are you? Lu Fan turned slightly, a sly grin tugging at his lips. You want to know who I am? He asked mockingly, his voice laced with confidence. I'm no ordinary summoner. I am a dragon tamer. The black dragon let out a deep, rumbling sound that echoed like thunder, its confusion giving way to submission. A system notification chimed in Lu Fan's mind. Black Dragon Covenant established. Skills unlocked, Dragon Claw, Dragon Fang Strike, Dragon's Inspiration. The woman's expression shifted from astonishment to terror. She scrambled to her knees, her voice cracking as she pleaded. Please, I didn't know it was a dragon egg. Spare me. Lu Fan's eyes darkened as he looked down at her. How many lives have you and your kind ruined with your schemes? He demanded, his voice like ice. I didn't, she stammered, but her words faltered under Lu Fan's piercing glare. Enough, he barked. His voice rang with finality as he gestured toward the black dragon. Go join your comrades in the afterlife. Without hesitation, the dragon lunged at the woman, its sleek form moving with deadly precision. Her screams cut through the air as she tried to flee, but it was futile. The sound of tearing flesh and the splatter of blood marked her end, her cries fading into silence. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight painted the sky with hues of gold and crimson. Lu Fan sat wearily on the ground, leaning against the black dragon's side as he tended to his injuries. He exhaled deeply, his breath fogging in the cool morning air. It's finally over, he murmured, relief washing over him. His moment of respite was interrupted by a rustling sound. Glancing to his side, Lu Fan noticed the black dragon rummaging through his bag with a curious expression. He raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk creeping onto his face. Hey, that's my stuff, he said, his tone softer now. What are you up to, you little glutton? The dragon let out a low rumble, nosing through the bag with unabashed curiosity. Lu Fan shook his head, a mix of amusement and exasperation flickering in his eyes. Despite the chaos that had unfolded, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of camaraderie with the creature that had become his ally. Lu Fan carefully lifted the black dragon into his arms, marveling at the small yet powerful creature. I can't believe this is real, he murmured, his voice tinged with amazement. The dragon growled softly, its small wings flapping in irritation as Lu Fan raised it higher. Amused by its feistiness, he chuckled. So lively already, huh? You've got quite the personality. He paused, allowing his imagination to wander as he pictured himself soaring through the skies on the dragon's back once it matured. A grin spread across his face. With you, I've truly crossed the line between weak and strong, he said, his tone brimming with excitement. If you're this strong right after hatching, I can't even fathom how powerful you'll become after leveling up. Hugging the dragon close, Lu Fan's eyes gleamed with determination. Soon, the title of Dragon Tamer won't be mocked as the weakest class anymore, he declared. His mind raced as he began pondering a fitting name for his new companion. Should I call you Little Cobble? Or maybe Black Diamond? He mused aloud, glancing at the dragon for any reaction. The black dragon, however, seemed uninterested in his naming dilemma. Its gaze was fixed intently on the bandaged wound on Lu Fan's arm. Before he could decide on a name, the dragon suddenly leaned in and began licking the wound with its rough tongue. Startled, Lu Fan yelped, Hey! What are you doing? Cut it out. Before he could pull away, an intense crimson aura began to radiate from the dragon. The energy surged outward, forcing Lu Fan back as a sharp pain shot through his body. Gritting his teeth, he tried to shield himself, but his eyes widened in shock as he saw the dragon's form enveloped in the glowing red light. A humanoid visage emerged within the aura, adorned with curved horns and otherworldly features. As the energy dissipated, Lu Fan gasped, his eyes locking onto the figure that now stood where the dragon once was. Before him stood a striking red-haired woman, her horns gleaming and her fiery gaze filled with curiosity. Her figure was both imposing and graceful, with a commanding presence that left Lu Fan momentarily speechless. What in the world just happened? He stammered, struggling to process the scene before him. Wait, are you telling me you can transform into a human form too? The woman nodded with a calm expression, her movements fluid and deliberate. Still in disbelief, Lu Fan hastily pulled up the system interface, his fingers trembling as he accessed the black dragon's attributes. Meanwhile, the woman, still exploring her surroundings, seemed to be taking everything in with childlike curiosity. Lu Fan's eyes darted across the screen as the attributes loaded. His mouth fell open as he studied the details. As I thought, he murmured, his voice tinged with awe. Taming a dragon, it really unlocks every skill they possess. This is beyond anything I imagined. He looked up, meeting the dragon-turned woman's piercing gaze. Though his mind was reeling, a glimmer of excitement sparked within him. With you by my side, he muttered under his breath, the world won't stand a chance. Lu Fan began explaining the incredible potential of the skills unlocked through his bond with the Black Dragon. Dragon's inspiration, he remarked, is a game changer. It enhances both my strength and the dragon's, granting a 30% boost to all attributes and attack power. He marveled at the skill's potency, noting that it far surpassed the buffs provided by even the most skilled priests. He continued, Dragon Fang Strike isn't just a high-damage ability, it's devastating. And with Dragon Claw, I can channel the dragon's power directly into my own arm, delivering blows that rival her strength. Curiosity piqued, Lu Fan pulled up the Black Dragon's profile and clicked through her stats. As he scanned the information, his eyes widened in astonishment. Even if we disregard her being a newly hatched dragon, her base stats alone are leagues ahead, he muttered, a sense of awe creeping into his voice. Her attributes are 5 to 6 times higher than a normal human's. If I relied solely on my boosted abilities, I could still obliterate combat professions of the same level. When the system displayed her skills and detailed attributes, Lu Fan was momentarily speechless. Each of her attributes was in the triple digits, a staggering revelation. She's only a level 1 hatchling, he murmured, shaking his head in disbelief. Yet, with nearly 400 points in every attribute, she's stronger than even the most seasoned human fighters. Not even a human expert 20 levels higher would stand a chance against her. He clenched his fists, sensing the amplified strength coursing through his body. It's no wonder I feel this much stronger, he said, recalling the blood connection they shared. It doubles all my attributes directly. Dragons are on an entirely different level. Reflecting on the strongest hidden job classes, Lu Fan smirked. No matter how powerful they claim to be, nothing can compare to taming a dragon. Without a doubt, the Dragon Tamer is the most powerful hidden job class. While he stood proudly, basking in his newfound power, the Black Dragon was happily chewing on the remnants of her eggshells. Lu Fan chuckled as he observed her behavior. Even though you can take on a human form, it seems you haven't lost your dragon instincts, he remarked with a grin. As the dragon finished her feast, Lu Fan stroked his chin thoughtfully. I suppose I need to give you a proper name, he mused aloud. Gazing at her sleek black scales that glistened in the morning light, he considered her birth. Born in the darkest hour before dawn, how about Zioi? At the mention of the name, the dragon lifted her head and let out an excited howl. Lu Fan laughed. Looks like you like it, he said warmly. Admiring her, he muttered to himself, this treasure hunt may have been dangerous, but it was more than worth it. Glancing at Zioi, who was now sniffing at his bag, he grinned and asked, Are you hungry? Her enthusiastic howl was all the confirmation he needed, and he laughed again, feeling a rare moment of camaraderie with his newly hatched yet immensely powerful companion. Lu Fan decided it was time to hunt for monsters to satisfy Zioi's hunger. We can't just leave the mountains empty-handed, he reasoned, leading the way deeper into the forest. He added that this was an opportunity not only to feed Zioi but also to prepare for the upcoming university trials. The prestigious South Province Scholar Reward and a chance to enroll in the Dragon Kingdom's top university were within reach, but Lu Fan knew he couldn't let his guard down. Leveling up and honing my skills is the only way to secure my spot, he muttered, determination shining in his eyes. He motioned Zioi to follow, and the black dragon eagerly flew close behind. You'll love the monsters in the depths, Lu Fan teased. They'll taste much better than those eggshells. Zioi responded with a delighted howl, clearly thrilled by the idea. Their playful mood shifted abruptly when a thunderous roar echoed through the air. Lu Fan and Zioi froze, instinctively turning toward the source of the noise. Moments later, a pack of creatures emerged from the shadows, charging directly at them. Lu Fan quickly summoned the system's interface to identify their attackers. Plain hyenas, he read aloud, recognizing their ferocity. Unlike the bloodthirsty gray fox he had fought earlier, these creatures were stronger and more cunning, often hunting in coordinated packs. Lu Fan clenched his fists. In the past, these beasts would have been a nightmare, he mused, recalling how much effort it had taken to defeat a single gray fox. But that was before he could strategize, a powerful gust of wind swept past him. Lu Fan shielded his face, realizing the sudden force came from Zioi, who had already taken flight. She soared into the sky, her wings slicing through the air with ease. Lu Fan grinned. Looks like you're eager to fight, he said, his voice steady with newfound confidence. All right then, let's show them what we're made of. With Zioi circling overhead, Lu Fan charged forward, weapon at the ready. For the strongest dragon tamer and his companion, these rocky plains are no challenge at all, he declared boldly. High above, Zioi glided gracefully, her sharp eyes locked onto the pack of hyenas below. Her presence alone was enough to instill fear, but Lu Fan knew that the Real show was just beginning. Zioi inhaled deeply, her chest glowing as she prepared to unleash an attack. Without hesitation, she activated her lava flame ability, releasing a torrent of scorching flames that engulfed the plain hyenas. The intense heat not only incinerated her foes but also restored her vitality with every use. Lu Fan watched in satisfaction as the system notifications appeared, 380 experience points earned for each hyena defeated. As Zioi continued to reduce the pack to ashes, Lu Fan's level climbed to 2, and Zioi advanced to level 3. Not bad, Lu Fan muttered, glancing at his glowing status screen. But he knew they needed something more challenging to gain significant experience. We'll need to hunt an elite monster if we want faster progress, he decided, calling out to Zioi. She paused her assault, glancing back at him. Forget the small fry. There's something bigger ahead, Lu Fan said, narrowing his eyes at the faint glimmer in the darkness. From the shadows emerged a hulking creature with razor-sharp claws and an aura of dominance. The monster's guttural growl reverberated through the air as it stepped forward, revealing its massive frame. A level 25 three-skull blood lion, Lu Fan identified, his voice steady but laced with anticipation. An elite leader. Normally, it'd take a team of hunters to bring one down. But we're no ordinary team, are we, he said, smirking at Zioi. She let out a fierce howl in agreement. The blood lion snarled, activating its roar skill. The powerful sound wave swept across the battlefield, accompanied by a gust of wind that sent loose rocks flying. Lu Fan gritted his teeth as the lion's stats surged, boosting its attack and defense significantly. The creature wasted no time preparing its next move, Triple Flame. Flames coiled around its 3 heads, forming glowing orbs of fire that threatened to unleash devastation in multiple bursts. Lu Fan acted swiftly. Zioi, we need to interrupt that skill, he commanded. Zioi growled affirmatively, flames spiraling around her as her aura intensified. The fiery dragoness transformed into a blazing whirlwind, her presence overwhelming the area with heat and pressure. Meanwhile, Lu Fan crouched low, his gaze fixed on the lion. As the beast focused on charging its skill, Lu Fan seized the opening. With a burst of energy, he leapt into the air, spinning as he ascended. Behind him, Zioi's fiery whirlwind surged forward, a burning tempest aimed directly at the blood lion. The two worked in perfect synchronization. Zioi's whirlwind collided with the blood lion, breaking its focus and scattering the charged flames. Simultaneously, Lu Fan descended from above, his weapon glowing with energy as he aimed for the lion's vulnerable spot. This is how a dragon tamer fights, he shouted, striking with precision while Zioi roared, readying her next attack. As Zioi's fiery whirlwind intensified, Lu Fan smirked and remarked, "Let me try something new first." The flames around Zioi flared even brighter as she activated her dragon true shape skill. With a thunderous roar, she emerged from the fiery vortex, her form more imposing than before. Her scales gleamed ominously as she charged forward, unleashing her skill mighty jaw strike with terrifying speed. She clamped her powerful jaws onto the three-skull blood lion, tearing into its flesh and inflicting relentless bleeding damage. The attack disrupted the lion's triple flame skill, scattering its charged energy into harmless embers. "Well done, Zioi," Lu Fan shouted, his voice filled with admiration. Without hesitation, he seized the moment to strike. He gathered dragon energy into his weapon and activated Dragon Fang Strike, delivering a devastating blow that radiated power. The impact sent the massive blood lion crashing to the ground with a pained roar, its body riddled with deep injuries. Lu Fan somersaulted backward, landing with practiced ease as he surveyed the battlefield. The once mighty three-skull blood lion lay motionless, its breath shallow. "It's over," Lu Fan declared confidently as Zioi descended beside him, her wings folding gracefully. Moments later, a familiar chime rang in Lu Fan's ears. The system displayed their victory, 23,790 experience points earned each. Lu Fan grinned as he leveled up to level 4, while Zioi surged ahead to level 9. "Elite monsters sure are worth the effort," Lu Fan remarked, impressed by the rapid level gains. "Just one of these can boost us by several levels. If we keep this up, we'll be unstoppable." As he caught his breath, the treasure map system activated with a soft hum. A notification appeared, revealing a new treasure map. "Another one?" Lu Fan muttered, his curiosity piqued. The map's details hinted at an exclusive reward for dragon tamers. "Looks like we've got a hunt ahead of us, Zioi." Zioi howled enthusiastically, her tail swishing with excitement. Without wasting time, Lu Fan motioned her to follow as they headed toward their next adventure. Meanwhile, deep within the rocky plains, hidden among towering boulders, 3 figures stood quietly. A young woman with sharp eyes turned to the older man beside her. "Uncle G, are we really going to let this opportunity slip by? Something like this doesn't come around often." The man, Sun Ji, a seasoned warrior, let out a deep sigh. "It's not about what we want," he replied gravely. There's nothing we can do right now. Entry to Secret Realm required at least 5 people. Unfortunately, their group didn't have enough people. He suggested that Kier return to Zhonghai City to gather reinforcements, but Kier immediately shook his head in refusal. Even with my speed, Kier argued, a round trip would take an entire day. By the time I'm back, the Secret Realm will already have vanished. Qin Kuei, a young woman of an unknown combat class, sighed heavily. The Fortune's Secret Realm appears randomly, and its rewards far surpass ordinary dungeons. But it only exists for 24 hours. We definitely won't make it in time. Her frustration was evident as she kicked a loose stone on the ground. Sun Ji, attempting to console her, said, Qin Kuei, there's no need to be so worried. With your abilities, once you get into one of the top 10 academies, you'll have plenty of opportunities like this. Qin Kuei crossed her arms and responded, I know that. But this realm's rewards, it's such a waste to let it slip away. Her voice trailed off, disappointment etched on her face. Suddenly, Sun Ji's expression hardened. His sharp instincts detected movement nearby. Someone's here, he growled, quickly stepping in front of Qin Kuei with his weapon drawn. Kier mirrored his actions, both of them bracing for a confrontation. From behind a nearby rock, a figure casually emerged. Lu Fan appeared with a disarming smile, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. Relax, he said lightly. I'm just passing through. Sun Ji scrutinized him from head to toe, noting the dirt and dust covering Lu Fan's attire. You don't look like you belong here. This isn't where a typical material hunter should be, he remarked skeptically. Before Sun Ji could say more, Qin Kuei raised her hand to signal him to stand down. She stepped forward and introduced herself with a polite smile. I'm Qin Kuei, from the Qin family of Zhonghai City, she began. This might seem a little abrupt, but I have a proposal for you. Lu Fan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Go on. Qin Kuei continued, her tone earnest. We need one more person to activate the Fortune's Secret Realm. If you agree to join us, you won't have to do anything inside the realm. Just help us enter. For your trouble, we're offering a reward of 100,000 dragon coins. Lu Fan's steps faltered as he heard the offer, his interest piqued. 100,000 dragon coins? He repeated, as if confirming what he just heard. Inside, his mind raced. The Fortune's Secret Realm? Even the Qin family from Zhonghai City, one of the wealthiest families around, is desperate to enter. If they're this eager, the rewards must be extraordinary. Qin Kuei nodded, sensing his hesitation. Yes, 100,000. And we'll handle everything else inside? Lu Fan tilted his head, considering the proposition. That's quite the generous offer. Why don't you tell me more about this secret realm? Lu Fan nodded as Qin Kuei clarified that they just needed enough people to meet the requirements of the realm. She emphasized that Lu Fan wouldn't need to lift a finger during the exploration and could still walk away with the promised 100,000 dragon coins. As the portal to the secret realm shimmered to life, Sun Ji couldn't hide his excitement. Opportunities like this don't come often, he urged. Let's get moving before it's too late. Lu Fan, however, remained composed. Money isn't what I'm after, he stated calmly, surprising everyone. If we're going to work together, let's allocate the rewards based on contribution. Kier blinked in disbelief, stepping forward. So you're saying you want to split the rewards depending on how much each of us contributes? Are you serious? Lu Fan nodded. Exactly. Qin Kuei raised an eyebrow, scrutinizing him. Our average level is around 20, she pointed out. You look like you're significantly weaker than us. Are you confident in your skills, or is this just arrogance? Her skepticism didn't seem to faze Lu Fan. Instead, he extended his hand toward her. You'll find out soon enough, he replied with a small grin. Qin Kuei shook his hand after a brief pause and announced to the group, all right, it's settled. Let's head in. As the group prepared to enter the secret realm, Xiaoai remained hidden within Lu Fan's system interface, curled up and sleeping soundly. Lu Fan muttered under his breath, it'd only cause trouble if I revealed her here. Better to wait until I've secured the secret realm's rewards. Moments after stepping into the mysterious realm, Sun Ji couldn't help but glance over at Lu Fan. His sharp eyes quickly noticed something peculiar. You're not carrying any equipment, he remarked. Are you planning to fight barehanded? Lu Fan smirked, amused by the observation. Inwardly, he scoffed at the notion that he was unprepared. Slowly, he extended his hand, and a fiery aura began to swirl around his palm. In an instant, the flames coalesced into a weapon, his newly acquired ink dragon deer ambler sword, an epic-quality blade shimmering with a deep, obsidian sheen and intricate dragon carvings along its hilt. Everyone stared, stunned by the dramatic reveal. I didn't feel the need to show it earlier, Lu Fan explained casually, giving the weapon a quick flourish. I just defeated the three-skull blood lion not long ago. Triggered an advanced treasure map and finally upgraded my weapon. No more relying on that dull starter cleaver. Sun Ji's gaze lingered on the sword, his expression a mix of curiosity and respect. Not bad, he admitted. Looks like you're more prepared than I thought. Qin Kuei crossed her arms, watching Lu Fan with renewed interest. Well then, she said, a sly smile playing on her lips. Let's see if you can live up to that sword in this realm. Sun Ji's eyes widened at the sight of Lu Fan's sword. He couldn't help but marvel at its craftsmanship, noting its extraordinary design. That's quite the weapon, he remarked, his tone laced with curiosity. Judging by your age, I thought you might be a material hunter or perhaps a newly transferred student. Before Lu Fan could respond, Kier interjected with a sharp tone. What does it matter, Sun Ji? We're here to cooperate. Besides, if he's up to anything suspicious, I'll make sure to deal with him myself. Her confidence caught Lu Fan's attention, but before he could say anything, Sun Ji suddenly jumped back with a start. A decayed, rotting hand emerged from the ground near his feet. His eyes darted down just in time to see a level 15 decaying zombie clawing its way out of the earth. Moments later, more zombies began to surface, their grotesque forms staggering toward the group. Sun Ji, watch out! Qin Kuei shouted, her voice tinged with urgency. Sun Ji readied his weapon, but before he could act, a figure leapt in front of him. Xiaojia, a level 20 knight, raised his shield and charged at the nearest zombies, slamming into them with enough force to send their brittle forms stumbling backward. Nice work, Xiaojia. Sun Ji called out, his voice filled with gratitude. Kier, meanwhile, had already drawn her crossbow. With practiced ease, she fired a volley of bolts, each one finding its mark and taking down a zombie in quick succession. Sun Ji joined the fray, his blade cleaving through the decaying creatures. The two of them, a level 28 warrior and a level 23 rogue, made quick work of the initial wave of zombies, their coordination flawless. From the sidelines, Lu Fan observed the group's dynamic with a faint smirk. A warrior, a rogue, and a knight holding the gate, solid team composition, he muttered to himself. His gaze lingered on Sun Ji, noting his strength and precision. Especially with Sun Ji nearing his second-class advancement. They're a capable team. Meanwhile, Qin Kuei stepped forward, gripping her staff tightly as she began chanting under her breath. A radiant, golden aura surrounded her, illuminating the dark surroundings as she unleashed her skill, Holy Light Star Rain. Brilliant beams of light rained down upon the battlefield, striking the zombies with unerring accuracy. The holy energy burned through their decayed flesh, reducing them to ash in moments. The spell's overwhelming power turned the tide of the skirmish, leaving nothing but scorched ground where the zombies once stood. Lu Fan raised an eyebrow, impressed. Not bad, he mused, his hand resting casually on the hilt of his sword. It seems this group has more to offer than I initially thought. As the Holy Light Star Rain skill activated, radiant energy coalesced above, showering the battlefield with beams of starlight. The divine rain dealt devastating holy damage to the undead while simultaneously mending the wounds of nearby allies. The sheer brilliance of the spell lit up the area, pushing back the oppressive gloom. Qin Kuei turned to Lu Fan, explaining, "This is one of the unique traits of my class. The Holy Light Mage, a hidden class, specializes in both offense and healing. Though its damage output isn't as high as a typical mage, and its healing capabilities can't match a priest, it provides a good balance of both." Lu Fan nodded in understanding, his sharp eyes catching the details of her stats. "A level 13 Holy Light Mage, huh?" he remarked. "Another hidden class. And holy damage, it's perfect for dealing with these zombies." Before their conversation could continue, a sudden tremor rippled through the ground. The unexpected quake startled the group, and everyone instinctively braced themselves. The unsettling sound of shuffling and groaning filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Lu Fan's expression hardened as he spotted the source of the disturbance. A wave of decaying zombies began shambling toward them, but their ragged movements hinted at something far more dangerous. "An elite monster has been triggered," he called out, his tone firm. "And it sounds like it's not alone?" As if on cue, multiple level 20 bloodthirsty zombies burst from the ground, their grotesque forms towering over the regular undead. Their bloodshot eyes gleamed with malevolence, and their movements were faster and more aggressive. Sun Ji, ever the strategist, quickly assessed the situation. "An elite wave," he muttered grimly. He turned to Kier and barked orders. "Kier, stick with Qin Kuei and Lu Fan. Protect them at all costs." Without missing a beat, he called out to Xiaojia, his voice steady but urgent. "Xiaojia, with me. We'll hold the front line. We can't let these rotting monsters break through." Xiaojia adjusted his shield, his expression determined as he stepped into position beside Sun Ji. The two braced themselves as the horde surged forward, ready to meet the wave of elite zombies head-on. Kier, meanwhile, notched another bolt in her crossbow, standing guard near Qin Kuei, her eyes scanning for any threats that might slip through. Xiaojia braced himself at the front line, shield raised high, while Sun Ji stood close behind, swinging his sword in a calculated arc. With a powerful leap, Sun Ji activated his skill, Full Moon Slash, delivering a gleaming crescent strike that slammed into one of the bloodthirsty zombies, slicing deeply into its grotesque form. Xiaojia followed up with a fierce lunge, plunging his blade into another zombie's chest. His confidence wavered, however, when he tried to pull the sword free. It wouldn't budge. Panic flickered across his face as he noticed the zombie's rotting flesh writhing unnaturally, clinging tightly to the embedded weapon. What the, why won't it come out? Xiaojia muttered, his voice filled with frustration and disbelief. The bloodthirsty zombies, undeterred, retaliated by activating their skill, corpse poison. The malicious ability caused any physical attack against them to infect the attacker, leading to a steady loss of health while the zombies themselves regenerated. Xiaojia's eyes widened in horror as his own health began to drain, even as he struggled to free his weapon. Lu Fan, watching from a distance, quickly recognized the zombie's sinister tactic. It's corpse poison, he muttered under his breath. A priest's purify skill is needed to dispel it, but Qin Kuei's class doesn't have the ability. Xiaojia's panic deepened when the zombie's decaying flesh slithered up the blade and began grasping at his hand. He called out desperately, Sun Ji. Help me. Sun Ji, meanwhile, encountered the same grim fate. The zombie he struck had absorbed his sword into its putrid mass, refusing to relinquish it. Realizing the futility of the struggle, Sun Ji abandoned his weapon. Xiaojia, let go of your sword now, he barked, his voice edged with urgency. He lunged forward, shoving Xiaojia away from the creature just as it reached for him. Kier! Sun Ji shouted, turning to the rogue. Get up here and cover us. But before Kier could react, a calm voice interjected, there's no need for that. The group turned to see Lu Fan stepping forward, his expression unreadable. Sun Ji frowned, surprised and skeptical. What are you doing? He demanded. Leave this to me, Lu Fan replied confidently, his steps measured as he moved toward the hulking zombies. The bloodthirsty zombie nearest him suddenly let out a guttural roar, its grotesque body swelling as it prepared to charge. Its menacing presence seemed to grow larger with each thundering step. Sun Ji's instincts kicked in, and he lunged to grab Lu Fan, shouting, Are you out of your mind? Get back before you're killed. But Lu Fan remained unfazed. He gently brushed off Sun Ji's hand and continued forward, his eyes fixed on the grotesque monster. His demeanor radiated a quiet yet unshakable resolve. Let me show you what I can do, Lu Fan said, his voice steady as he prepared to confront the charging zombie head-on. Lu Fan's sword ignited with a blazing aura as he swung it in a precise arc, slicing deeply into the bloodthirsty zombie's grotesque form. The fiery energy seared through the creature, halting its advance. Sun Ji, Xiaojia, and Kier could only watch in astonishment as Lu Fan unleashed a relentless flurry of strikes. Each swing of his sword carved through the horde, creating dazzling arcs of fire that cut down the zombies with devastating efficiency. Qin Kuei stood still, her wide eyes fixed on Lu Fan. Awe reflected in her gaze as she observed his effortless movements and extraordinary power. Within moments, the battlefield was cleared. The charred remains of the zombies lay scattered across the ground. Lu Fan, breathing steadily, turned his attention to the others. He approached Sun Ji, who was still too stunned to speak, and extended the warrior's retrieved sword. Here, Lu Fan said calmly, placing it back in Sun Ji's hands. You can't afford to hesitate. Keep moving forward. Sun Ji stared at his weapon, then at Lu Fan, his mind racing. Finally, he managed to stammer, How strong are you? That kind of power, there's no way you're just a newly transferred student. Lu Fan shrugged, the fiery aura around him dissipating. I'm level 14, he replied plainly, his tone matter of fact. I came to the Stone Plains to train for the great exam. There was no trace of deception in his words. Qin Kuei's head snapped up at the mention of the great exam. You're taking the great exam too? She asked, her voice laced with surprise. Internally, she was reeling. A level 14 student, but his attack power outclasses even Sun Ji, who's level 28. How is that possible? Before anyone could say more, a guttural roar shattered the silence. Another bloodthirsty zombie emerged from the shadows, its decayed body radiating malice as it charged toward Qin Kuei. The sudden appearance froze her in place, panic flickering in her eyes. Qin Kuei, watch out! Kier shouted as she darted forward, her crossbow at the ready. But just as she moved to intercept, a blur shot past her. It was Lu Fan. In an instant, he closed the distance between himself and the zombie, moving faster than anyone could react. With a decisive thrust, he drove his sword into the creature's chest. The impact sent the zombie hurtling backward, its massive frame crashing into a nearby wall. Kier lowered her weapon, staring in disbelief. He's faster than me, she murmured under her breath. Qin Kuei exhaled shakily, her hands clutching her staff as she tried to steady herself. Meanwhile, Sun Ji exchanged a glance with Xiaojia, who could only shake his head in stunned silence. Lu Fan withdrew his sword and turned back to the group. "Let's not waste time," he said coolly. "We still have more ground to cover." As Lu Fan pulled his sword from the fallen zombie, he observed calmly, "The level of these zombies is only going to increase as we go further into the village." With a quick flick of his wrist, he sent the blood dripping from his blade splattering to the ground. He turned to the group and declared with confidence, "I'll take the front row. Does anyone have a problem with that?" His bold statement left the group momentarily speechless. Qin Kuei's mind raced as she glanced at him, her expression a mix of curiosity and intrigue. Could he be the person rumored in Zhonghai City? She wondered silently. Breaking the silence, Qin Kuei addressed him. "All right, classmate Lu Fan," she began, her tone steady. "We'll rely on you then. You and Sun Ji will handle the front line while I tend to Xiaojia's injuries. Kier will take the rear for support and cover. If the Mystic Realm Guardian is anywhere, it should be further inside the village." Lu Fan glanced back at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Just call me Lu Fan," he said lightly before turning his focus forward. He strode ahead without hesitation, calling over his shoulder, "Let's keep moving. We don't have time to waste." Sun Ji remained quiet, still trying to process what he had just witnessed. Kier, meanwhile, was busy helping Xiaojia, who groaned in discomfort as he leaned on her for support. As the group moved deeper into the secret realm, Qin Kuei's thoughts lingered on Lu Fan. She murmured to herself, could he really be the rumored dragon tamer? Shaking her head slightly, she dismissed the idea. No, that's impossible. If he were a dragon tamer, it's supposed to be one of the weakest hidden classes. Their trek deeper into the realm was interrupted when another bloodthirsty zombie came crashing face first to the ground, its decaying form stirring up a cloud of dust. The group pressed on, eventually reaching the center of the mysterious village. The area was eerily quiet, but the tension was palpable as they realized they were completely surrounded by zombies. Lu Fan's sharp eyes darted to Xiaojia, who was visibly struggling. "Qin Kuei," he said, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere, "your abilities aren't enough to dispel the corpse poison. His condition isn't going to improve without the right cure." Qin Kuei clenched her fists, frustration flickering across her face as she glanced at Xiaojia's pale complexion. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on the group, but Lu Fan's unwavering demeanor provided a sliver of hope amidst the rising danger. The group's situation grew more dire with each passing moment. Qin Kuei's expression was grim as she reminded everyone, "The teleportation gate won't open until we defeat the Mystic Realm Guardian. We don't have much time. If we delay any longer, Xiaojia might succumb to the corpse poison." Her voice faltered, the unspoken fear lingering in the air. If Xiaojia died, he could turn into a zombie and become a threat to them all. Kier, visibly anxious, scanned the village. "Something's not right," she said. "We've searched the entire area, but there's no sign of the Mystic Realm Guardian." Nearby, Sun Ji was visibly fatigued, sweat trickling down his face as he fought off another wave of zombies. Some managed to creep up behind him unnoticed, their hollow groans growing louder. Despite his weakened state, Xiaojia noticed the threat and forced himself to call out. "Sun Ji! Behind you," he warned, his voice strained. But as the words left his mouth, his legs gave out, and he collapsed to the ground. "Xiaojia!" Qin Kuei cried, rushing to his side. Panic flashed in her eyes as she tried to help him up. "Stay with us. Don't give up." At that moment, something unusual caught her attention. A faint glint of light shimmered near one of the crumbling buildings. Alarmed, Qin Kuei's gaze snapped to the structure just as it began to move. The ruined building shifted, its shattered walls coalescing into a massive figure. With a horrifying creak of metal and stone, the form revealed itself, a towering iron-skinned zombie. Sun Ji's body tensed as he gripped his weapon tighter. "That's it," he shouted. "The Mystic Realm Guardian is here." The colossal creature let out a guttural growl, its voice chillingly low. "Fresh flesh," it rumbled, its grotesque form advancing toward the group. It wasn't alone. Several smaller zombies had fused into its body, their distorted faces leering from its chest and shoulders, muttering and snarling incoherently. Kier stepped forward, her crossbow already in hand. "Get ready. This is it," she yelled, steeling herself for the battle ahead. The group braced themselves, knowing that their survival hinged on defeating this monstrous guardian. Lu Fan's sharp gaze shifted to Xiaojia's worsening condition, his breathing shallow and skin pallid. Observing the transformation in the iron-skinned zombie, Lu Fan's suspicions solidified. He raised his voice to address the group. "The corpse poison has reached a critical point. That thing is being drawn to Xiaojia. If we don't act quickly, it'll absorb him and grow even stronger." Sun Ji reacted without hesitation, dashing forward to confront the iron-skinned zombie. He leaped into the air and unleashed his moonlight slash, the blade shimmering with energy as it struck the creature's metallic frame. But to his shock, the zombie remained unharmed, not even a scratch marring its hardened surface. What the? How is this possible? Sun Ji muttered, stepping back in disbelief. Without missing a beat, Lu Fan advanced, his fiery aura flaring to life as he gripped his blade tightly. There's no time for trial and error, he said, his tone firm. If we let it continue, we'll be overwhelmed. He aimed for the iron-skinned zombie's head, his blade slicing downward with precision and strength. Flames erupted on contact, but the massive zombie barely flinched. It let out a low growl, its body shimmering briefly as its steel skin ability activated. The creature's defense surged, making its body nearly impervious to attacks. This thing's defense has increased by at least 40%, Lu Fan muttered under his breath. He calculated quickly, his mind racing. We don't have time for small attacks. We need to take it down fast. Meanwhile, the zombie's malevolent gaze locked onto Xiaojia. With a guttural snarl, it began lumbering toward him. Its body glowed faintly as it activated assimilation absorption, a chilling skill that allowed it to fuse with a target, increasing its own power and size. The ground trembled with its every step, the ominous pull of its ability drawing closer to Xiaojia. Not on my watch, Lu Fan growled, determination blazing in his eyes. He dashed toward the creature, releasing a surge of energy that rippled through the air. Turning to Qin Kuei, he called out, use your holy magic. I'll create an opening. Sun Ji, you protect Xiaojia at all costs, don't let anything get near him. As Lu Fan charged, he activated the special power of his weapon, the Ink Dragon Deer Antler Sword. A surge of energy coursed through him as he triggered dragon blood armorization. His arms began to transform, the skin hardening into scaled armor as his hands morphed into massive dragon claws, radiating raw power. The air around him sizzled with heat, and his movements became a blur as he closed the distance between himself and the iron-skinned zombie. The creature growled, its deep, guttural voice muttering, fresh flesh. It lunged at Xiaojia, but Lu Fan intercepted it, slamming his dragonized claw into the zombie's chest. The impact reverberated through the village, forcing the creature back momentarily. Qin Kuei! Now's your chance! Lu Fan shouted, holding the creature at bay as his fiery aura intensified, ready to strike again. Qin Kuei nodded firmly at Lu Fan's command, raising her staff as a brilliant glow enveloped her. With unwavering focus, she began chanting her spell. Golden radiance illuminated the battlefield as she unleashed holy light star rain, cascading beams of light descending onto the iron-skinned zombie. Simultaneously, Lu Fan tightened his grip, the transformation of his arm into a dragon claw complete. The black dragon's essence surged through him, amplifying his strength and fueling his fiery strikes. With a determined roar, Lu Fan lunged at the iron-skinned zombie, his dragon claw slashing through its hardened exterior. Each blow struck with such force that cracks began to form in the zombie's impenetrable armor. The iron-skinned zombie howled in agony, its grotesque voice echoing as it began to stagger. Fresh flesh, it growled repeatedly, its voice growing fainter as Qin Kuei's holy light relentlessly sapped its vitality. Kair, observing the scene, gasped in shock as the zombie's massive body started to disintegrate, chunks of its metallic form crumbling to ash. Sun Ji, standing nearby, was rendered speechless. When Lu Fan turned to the group, he calmly remarked, this thing's strength relied on its fusion absorption ability. The larger it became, the more unstable its structure was. Its core, its true body, was buried within. Sun Ji muttered in awe, I've been around the Qin family long enough to meet countless powerful figures, but Lu Fan, you're on a completely different level. You have to be a hidden professional? As the zombie's outer shell continued to collapse, an eerie sight emerged, a smaller, grotesque figure hidden within the ruins of the larger body. Near what had once been its eye, a tiny, deformed zombie revealed itself, its mouth trembling as it whimpered, flesh, must have flesh. Its ghastly appearance sent shivers through the group. Qin Kuei pointed to the smaller form. That's it, the main body, she exclaimed. Before anyone could react, Lu Fan dashed forward in a blur. The tiny zombie shrieked in alarm as Lu Fan's dragon claw descended upon it. You're not escaping, he growled, his voice filled with authority. The claw released a blazing aura as it struck, engulfing the core zombie in searing flames. Burn, Lu Fan commanded, his tone cold and resolute. The tiny zombie screeched as the flames consumed it, writhing in agony. With a final, desperate roar, its form disintegrated entirely. As Lu Fan landed back on the ground, the remnants of the iron-skinned zombie's body erupted in a thunderous explosion, shaking the area. Dust and ash filled the air, and the battlefield grew quiet. Kair was the first to break the silence. Was that it? Did we really just defeat the Mystic Realm Guardian? She asked, her voice a mixture of disbelief and relief. Qin Kuei stared at Lu Fan, her staff trembling slightly in her hand. He really did it, she murmured, her expression one of awe as her gaze lingered on the smoldering remains of the once dreaded zombie. Qin Kuei's cautious gaze lingered on Lu Fan as she thought. I've never seen a skill with such overwhelming power, especially one that could bring down a level 20 boss so decisively, she said, her tone tinged with both awe and curiosity. Just who are you, Lu Fan? The remains of the fallen iron-skinned zombie shimmered and dissolved, leaving behind a gleaming treasure chest. The chest bore intricate carvings, signaling its rarity, and a faint aura of energy radiated from it. It was unmistakably the reward of defeating the Mystic Realm Guardian. Qin Kuei stepped forward and called out to Lu Fan. We'll follow the agreed-upon arrangement and distribute the items fairly, she said firmly, glancing at the others. Her expression softened as she added, before, we underestimated you and spoke without understanding your strength. I hope you can forgive us for our earlier rashness. Sun Ji, standing to the side, gave a sheepish laugh. Honestly, with your power, Lu Fan, you could have cleared this hidden realm all on your own. Right now, it feels like we're just along for the ride. Lu Fan waved off the praise with a modest smile. You give me too much credit, Sun Ji. As for the distribution, that's for Qin Kuei to decide, he replied. When Qin Kuei opened the chest, a golden light momentarily spilled out, drawing everyone's attention. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed as he studied the contents. His brows furrowed slightly, betraying his unease. The chest contained a strength potion, which temporarily boosted physical power upon consumption, an antidote potion capable of neutralizing corpse poison, and a pair of morning bracers, which glimmered faintly with enchantments but lacked the grandeur expected from such a dangerous realm. Kair, peering over Qin Kuei's shoulder, frowned. Is that it? Those are all the rewards from a level 20 mystic realm? She asked, her disappointment clear. Sun Ji scratched his head, his expression mirroring her sentiment. For all that effort, this feels underwhelming, he muttered. Qin Kuei, maintaining her composure, handed the antidote potion to Sun Ji. Quickly, give this to Xiao Jia. He needs it immediately to counteract the corpse poison, she instructed. As Sun Ji rushed to comply, Lu Fan's gaze remained fixed on the chest, his expression thoughtful. It doesn't add up, he said quietly, drawing everyone's attention. A level 20 Mystic Realm Guardian should yield far better rewards than this. There's something missing. His words hung in the air, a mixture of suspicion and intrigue. Qin Kuei looked at him, her brows furrowing slightly. What do you mean? Lu Fan didn't answer right away. Instead, he scanned their surroundings, his sharp gaze probing the shadows. Let's just say that a realm of this level rarely gives up all its secrets so easily, he murmured. We might not be done here just yet. Qin Kuei approached Lu Fan, holding out the morning bracers with a determined expression. These belong to you, she said firmly. Along with the strength and antidote potions. You earned them, so take them all? Lu Fan accepted the items after a moment of hesitation, nodding in acknowledgement. The Qin family certainly knows how to honor their agreements, he remarked, his tone neutral but appreciative. Meanwhile, Sun Ji was preoccupied helping Xiao Jia drink the antidote potion, gently urging him. How are you feeling now? Is it working? He asked, concern etched on his face. As Lu Fan equipped the morning bracers, their faint glow signaled their activation. He tucked the remaining potions into his inventory, his mind preoccupied with the peculiarities of the realm. Just then, Qin Kuei broke the silence, her brows furrowed in thought. It's strange, she began, glancing around the village. We defeated the Guardian, but there's still no sign of a portal appearing. Kair chimed in, glancing at the ruined surroundings. Should we spread out and search? Maybe it's hidden somewhere nearby, she suggested, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. Lu Fan's expression darkened, and he shook his head. No, he cautioned, his tone firm. Don't wander off yet. Something isn't right. His gaze flickered as he summoned his system interface, scanning the status of the realm. His eyes sharpened as he read the notification, realm progress, incomplete. His voice cut through the group's growing unease. The iron-skinned zombie wasn't the final boss, he announced, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Sun Ji turned to him, bewildered. How can you be so sure? Did you find something? Before Lu Fan could respond, Qin Kuei's face paled, and she stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the village outskirts. Wait, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I sense it now. As a holy light mage, I can detect lingering dark energy. Something sinister is close. She gestured toward the edge of the village, where a murky fog was beginning to creep in from the direction of Grief Lakeside. The fog seemed alive, pulsating with an unnatural aura. Qin Kuei pointed toward it, her voice low and tense. It's there. Whatever it is, it's watching us. As Sun Ji approached the lake's edge, he peered into the murky waters, speaking aloud to break the tension. If Qin Kuei says the boss is near, then it has to be around here somewhere. He scanned the surroundings, unaware of the ominous presence lurking beneath the surface. The dark figure submerged in the water stirred, and multiple eyes on its tentacle-like limbs snapped open, glinting with eerie light. Lu Fan, attuned to the subtle shift in the atmosphere, suddenly tensed. "Get ready, it's coming," he called out, his voice sharp with urgency. The group barely had time to react before massive, tentacled appendages surged out of the lake, dripping with water and brimming with writhing eyes. The entity's entire presence was shrouded in mystery, no name, no level, nothing to indicate what they were dealing with. Sun Ji's expression hardened as he stepped forward, gripping his weapon tightly. "This has to be the final boss," he declared, his resolve unwavering. The creature struck first, one of its colossal limbs lashing out. Sun Ji braced himself, using his skill to create a barrier against the attack. "Everyone, take cover," he shouted, gritting his teeth. The force of the strike proved overwhelming, and with a loud crash, Sun Ji was sent flying, slamming into the ground. The group gasped in alarm as they rushed to check on him. Before they could regroup, Qin Kuei froze as a suffocating presence loomed behind her. She turned just in time to see one of the massive, grotesque arms descending toward her. Fear rooted her to the spot, and all she could do was raise her staff in a futile attempt to shield herself. Her eyes squeezed shut, bracing for the inevitable. Suddenly, a blur of movement cut through the chaos. Lu Fan darted forward with incredible speed, grabbing Qin Kuei and pulling her out of harm's way just as the monster's limb closed in. The force of his rescue sent them skidding across the ground, his boots scraping against the earth as he came to a halt. Qin Kuei's face flushed with a mix of shock and embarrassment as she realized what had just happened. "Are you okay?" Lu Fan asked, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Qin Kuei could only nod, her words caught in her throat. The rest of the group quickly surrounded them, visibly relieved that she was unharmed. But their respite was short-lived. Kair, who had been scanning the area, suddenly froze in place, her expression stricken. "It's not over," she whispered, trembling as a cold, oppressive aura washed over them. The monstrous entity began to emerge fully from the lake, its towering form dwarfing everything around it. The ground shook with each step it took as it advanced onto land. The group stared in stunned silence, their weapons clenched tightly. As the water slid off its grotesque form, something even more horrifying was revealed, a chained woman embedded in its torso, her eyes closed as if in a deep slumber. The sight sent chills through the group, and they instinctively stepped back. "What is that thing?" Sun Ji murmured, his voice barely audible over the sound of the creature's heavy, thunderous movements. The entity revealed itself as a level 25 grieving specter, its ominous presence radiating a sinister energy. Kair's voice trembled as she confirmed, "This is the real boss." Sun Ji stepped forward, positioning himself between the specter and Xiao Jia. "Stay behind me. I'll hold it off," he instructed firmly. Xiao Jia, still weak but determined, shook his head. "I can still fight. I won't just stand here and do nothing." "Stop being stubborn." Sun Ji barked, frustration evident in his tone. "You've just recovered. Leave the fighting to us." As the argument unfolded, Lu Fan stepped in, his tone calm yet commanding. "Sun Ji, Xiao Jia, focus on holding the line. I'll handle the boss. If it's a zombie, there's only one way to win, I'll destroy its main body." The grieving specter let out a deafening screech, her spectral form glowing with a sickly light. With a sinister wave, she activated corpse chi envelopment, releasing a toxic aura that spread through the realm. The air grew heavy, and the group felt an immediate drain on their strength, their attributes reduced by 20%. Xiao Jia winced in pain as the corrosive energy gnawed at his weakened body. Lu Fan, undeterred by the oppressive aura, charged forward with unyielding determination. As one of the specter's grotesque, clawed hands lashed toward him, he sidestepped nimbly, evading the strike with precision. His eyes locked onto the chains binding the specter's main body, and with a quick leap, he landed atop them, using the chains as a makeshift path. The grieving specter screeched in surprise, her multiple eyes narrowing as she noticed Lu Fan's bold maneuver. "He's coming straight for the core," she hissed in disbelief. From below, Qin Kuei shouted, her voice urgent. "Lu Fan, watch out for the chains. They're dangerous." Before Lu Fan could respond, the specter activated Chain Lash, her chains springing to life with a sharp, metallic crack. The heavy links surged toward him like serpents, their sheer force threatening to crush anything in their path. Lu Fan's eyes widened as he narrowly dodged the first strike, but the second caught him off guard, slamming into his side. The impact knocked him off the chains, sending him plummeting toward the ground. The grieving specter howled triumphantly, her chains whipping through the air in a deadly frenzy. The others gasped in alarm as the massive, thrashing chains turned toward them. "Scatter!" Sun Ji yelled, rallying the group. He braced himself, raising his shield to deflect an incoming strike. The sound of metal clashing against his defenses echoed through the air as the chains rebounded, but the force of the impact sent him staggering backward. Qin Kuei quickly raised her staff, chanting a protective spell to shield herself and Xiao Jia. Meanwhile, Kair dodged nimbly, her heart racing as the chains narrowly missed her. Sun Ji shouted urgently, "Qin Kuei, stay alert." Meanwhile, Xiao Jia activated his charge skill, rushing forward, while Kair knocked an arrow and aimed at the specter. As Lu Fan stumbled and lost his footing on the chains, another of the specter's grotesque hands lunged toward him. Kair's arrow, glowing faintly with energy, streaked through the air and struck the specter's hand just in time, causing it to recoil. Lu Fan glanced back, startled by the well-timed attack. His expression quickly turned stern as he called out, "Stop taking reckless shots. If you keep this up, you'll all get killed." Refocusing, Lu Fan gripped the chains tightly and crouched low, using them as a springboard to propel himself forward. The chains groaned under his weight but carried him closer to the specter's core. "Fall back, now," he commanded, his voice sharp and unyielding. With a burst of energy, he activated Dragon Fang Strike, channeling his dragon chi into his weapon. The ink dragon scale sword glowed fiercely before he unleashed a devastating slash. The grieving specter let out a piercing shriek, the strike tearing through her defenses. The air trembled from the impact, but she wasn't done yet. Recovering from the attack, the specter retaliated with chain lash, sending her massive chains thrashing wildly in all directions. Lu Fan leapt from the chains just as they whipped past him, the force sending shockwaves through the battlefield. Mid-air, he activated Dragon Blood Armor Transformation, his body undergoing a partial dragonization. The black dragon scale sword radiated an ominous power as scales formed across his arms, his strength surging. His right arm transformed into a fearsome dragon claw, its dark aura pulsating with power. Lu Fan descended with precision, activating Dragon Claw, which harnessed the full strength of his transformed arm. With a powerful swipe, he severed the specter's chains, the massive links falling to the ground with a thunderous crash. The others watched in awe as the once imposing chains lay broken, their malevolent energy dissipating into the air. "He's incredible," Xiao Jia murmured, his eyes wide with astonishment. Qin Kuei gripped her staff tightly, her voice filled with both awe and concern. "Is this the true power of the dragon scale sword?" Lu Fan landed gracefully, his dragonized arm shimmering in the eerie light. Without missing a beat, he fixed his gaze on the specter's core. "This ends now," he declared, his aura blazing with renewed intensity. Sun Ji's voice rang out urgently. "We can't handle this, boss. We need to retreat for now." Qin Kuei nodded in agreement, her tone heavy with resignation. "Lu Fan, if you keep stalling, you're putting us all in greater danger. Let's fall back while we still can." Standing firm, Lu Fan turned to Sun Ji and gave a clear command. "Take everyone and head back to the village. The zombies have already been dealt with there, so it'll be safer. Leave this to me." Qin Kuei hesitated, worry etched across her face. "But what about you? You're going to face that thing alone." Lu Fan's eyes sharpened. "I'll cover your retreat. Don't argue, just move." Kair called out to Qin Kuei, urging her to act. "We don't have time to waste. Let's go." Qin Kuei reluctantly nodded, muttering bitterly, "We're completely useless. He's the only one who can fight this thing." As the group began their retreat, Lu Fan muttered under his breath, "Even without the attribute debuff, you wouldn't be able to help much. Better to let someone who can handle this stay behind." His gaze locked onto the grieving specter, whose anguished scream reverberated through the air. Without hesitation, Lu Fan raised his hand and activated a portal. "It's time," he said, his voice steady. "Xiao Yi, you can come out now." From the swirling vortex, Xiao Yi emerged in her magnificent dragon form, her scales shimmering like molten metal. With a deafening roar, she charged at the grieving specter, sinking her razor-sharp teeth into one of its grotesque hands. The specter screeched in pain, thrashing violently to shake her off. Meanwhile, Sun Ji, Qin Kuei, and the others had paused at a safe distance, drawn by the commotion behind them. "What's going on back there?" Xiao Jia asked, squinting through the fog of battle. Kair's jaw dropped in disbelief. "Wait, is that a dragon? Did Lu Fan actually summon a dragon?" Their astonishment grew as they watched Xiao Yi launch a fierce assault. She unleashed her giant jaws assault skill, a high-speed charge followed by a savage bite that tore into the specter's flesh, leaving deep, bleeding wounds. Each strike radiated raw power, forcing the grieving specter onto the defensive. Qin Kuei's eyes widened as she whispered, "Lu Fan. Who are you really?" Xiao Yi roared again, her majestic form dominating the battlefield as she fought alongside Lu Fan, the tides of the battle beginning to shift. The grieving specter shrieked in agony as Xiao Yi's relentless assault tore through her defenses. With a mighty leap, Xiao Yi slashed through the chains that bound the specter, her claws gleaming with ferocious power. The specter wailed as she was forced backward, her massive form collapsing into the lake with a resounding splash that sent waves rippling across the surface. Foamy bubbles began to rise, breaking the lake's eerie stillness. Kair, watching from a distance, hesitated before asking, "Did Lu Fan actually defeat her?" Sun Ji shook his head in disbelief, his voice tinged with awe. That was terrifying. A boss this powerful, dismembered in just a few strikes. I've never seen anything like it. Xiao Jia, wide-eyed and pale, nodded slowly. I swear I saw it with my own eyes. That dragon, it wasn't just an illusion. It's real. Meanwhile, Qin Kuei's mind raced as she observed the scene. Her thoughts lingered on the rumors she'd heard from Shanghai City. Could this enigmatic man be the one they whispered about? The dragon tamer, Lu Fan? As silence began to settle over the battlefield, an ancient memory stirred within the grieving specter's tormented cries. 3 centuries ago, she had been a young woman in the quiet village near the lake. Protected by the church, she lived a peaceful life, far removed from the perils of the outside world. But that tranquility shattered when a devastating plague swept through the village, leaving death and despair in its wake. The village, overwhelmed by the sheer number of corpses, could no longer bury their dead. Bodies were piled by the lake, their lifeless eyes reflecting the anguish of the living. Consumed by desperation, the woman had sought to save her people, but her efforts bore no fruit. Her healing failed, and she turned to summoning spirits, giving the grieving villagers a chance to bid their final farewells. But instead of gratitude, she faced condemnation. The church, once her sanctuary, turned against her. The priests, claiming she was the harbinger of the plague, accused her of bringing ruin to their lives. "You must be chained," they demanded, binding her with heavy iron as they cursed her name. They painted her as a malevolent witch and cast her into the lake, sealing her fate. Despair etched deep into her soul. The woman, now the grieving specter, cried out, "Why? Why do you treat me this way? All I wanted was to save you. Even if I couldn't heal the sick, I gave you a chance to say goodbye. What did I do wrong?" Her anguish echoed across time, a haunting lament that still resonated in the realm she was forced to inhabit. The villagers' betrayal, the crushing weight of their false accusations, and the chains of their hatred had forged the monstrous specter now lying dormant beneath the lake's surface. As the group caught their breath, several turned toward Lu Fan with curiosity. "How on earth can you summon a dragon?" one of them finally asked, disbelief clear in their tone. Before he could respond, another pointed out, "The portal's ready. We can leave the secret realm now." But Lu Fan's gaze remained fixed on the lake. "No," he said firmly. "If the portal hasn't appeared yet, it means the boss isn't dead. It's not over." Before anyone could argue, the stillness of the lake was broken. Water erupted in all directions as the grieving specter rose once again, her voice trembling with anguish. Her haunting cry echoed, filled with despair and unanswered questions. "Why? Why must this happen?" she wailed as water swirled violently around her towering figure. The group instinctively readied their weapons, their tension palpable. The specter's mournful demands turned to seething curses as her body began to shift. With a piercing scream, she unleashed her wrath, transitioning into her second form, Morning Grudge, a level 25 nightmare difficulty boss. "Be careful," Kair shouted, gripping her bow tightly. "She's entering her second phase." The Morning Grudge let out a roar, absorbing the water surrounding her into a massive torrent. With a furious motion, she launched the swirling mass of water toward the hunters. "None of you will leave this place alive," she threatened, her voice carrying an edge of madness. Zhao Yi stepped forward, her draconic aura radiating strength. Activating her unique skill, Black Dragon Bloodline, her body shimmered with defensive energy. The system notified her allies, damage received reduced by 50%, all debuffs nullified, and self-recovery rate increased by 500%. With an ear-splitting roar, Zhao Yi intercepted the water attack, the force of the impact creating shockwaves that shook the ground. Elsewhere, Kair leaped aside to avoid another water projectile, but her relief was short-lived. The water coiled and surged toward her, ensnaring her in an unyielding prison. "Kair!" Qin Kuei screamed in alarm, rushing toward her friend. Kair grimaced, struggling against the water's grip. "It's no use," she shouted. "I can't break it. The system says this is body of resentment, immune to all physical damage." She clicked her tongue in frustration before her expression softened, guilt washing over her. "I'm sorry, Qin Kuei. It looks like this is the end for me." "Don't say that," Qin Kuei cried, her voice trembling. "If anyone's to blame, it's me. I was the one who insisted we explore this secret realm. I've put everyone in danger." Before the weight of despair could crush them, Lu Fan's voice cut through the chaos. "Are you all just going to give up now?" His words carried an unshakable resolve, drawing everyone's attention. They turned to him, momentarily stunned by his unwavering determination. If you can still stand, then fight, Lu Fan declared, gripping his weapon tightly as the battle raged on. We're not leaving this realm until we finish what we started. Qin Kuei stepped forward, frustration clear in her voice. I'm the only one here with magical attacks, but my level isn't high enough to deal significant damage, she exclaimed. Suanji clenched his fists as he scanned the battlefield, muttering grimly, the boss is completely immune to physical damage. We can't even defend ourselves effectively. Turning to Lu Fan, he asked urgently, do you still have magic attacks you can use? Before Lu Fan could answer, the Morning Grudge let out a piercing wail and activated her skill, Lamentation Impact. A dark aura radiated from her, spreading like a suffocating fog. The system notified them of the skill's effects, low chance of instant death, if not triggered, inflicts heavy damage and applies debuffs including corpse poison, bleeding, and stun. I can't, Lu Fan admitted calmly, despite the chaos. But, he glanced at Zhao Yi, his dragon companion, who exuded a fierce energy. My dragon can. Qin Kuei and the others exchanged uncertain glances. A dragon? Kair questioned in disbelief. But with the level difference, how effective could it possibly be? As if to answer her doubts, Zhao Yi roared, her scales gleaming with a fiery black sheen. Activating her skill, Black Dragon Bloodline, she exuded an aura that granted her immunity to instant death, poison, bleeding, and stun. Lu Fan smirked, addressing the group with a firm voice. The attributes of a dragon are on a completely different scale compared to humans. Don't underestimate her. Meanwhile, the Morning Grudge's voice echoed with anger and denial, her distorted form trembling with resentment. It wasn't my fault, she cried, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. With another wave of her hands, she unleashed Lamentation Impact once more, sending waves of dark energy surging toward the group. Zhao Yi surged forward, her immense form shielding the hunters. The immunity effects of her Black Dragon Bloodline absorbed the brunt of the attack, leaving her unscathed. The ground trembled beneath her as she let out a defiant roar, challenging the Morning Grudge's power. Lu Fan seized the moment, calling out to Zhao Yi. Now, he commanded, activating his skill Dragon Inspiration. A radiant energy engulfed Zhao Yi, amplifying her abilities and bolstering her attacks. The atmosphere shifted as the once doubtful hunters saw the tide of the battle begin to turn. Lu Fan activated his skill, Dragon Inspiration, enveloping both himself and Zhao Yi in a radiant aura. The energy surged through them, enhancing all attributes and significantly boosting their attack power. Seizing the opportunity, Zhao Yi unleashed her skill, Lava Blaze. Flames erupted from her maw, roaring forward in an unrelenting stream that scorched everything in their path. The intense heat radiated through the battlefield, singeing the very air. The Morning Grudge writhed in agony, her anguished screams echoing around the secret realm. No! This can't be, she cried as Zhao Yi's flames consumed her, relentless and fierce. Qin Kuei stood frozen in disbelief, her voice catching in her throat. Suanji could only shake his head in awe and mutter, This is pure devastation. Amid the chaos, Kair yelped in protest, shielding herself from the blazing heat. It's too hot, she complained, wiping sweat from her brow. Zhao Yi pressed on, her draconic form towering over the battlefield. It's over, she declared with unshakable confidence, her voice resonating with triumph. The Morning Grudge's form began to crumble under the relentless onslaught of flames. Her final screams filled the air as her body burned away. No! This isn't the end, she wailed. In a desperate last act, she activated her skill, Will of Resentment. A wave of malevolent energy erupted from her, and purple smoke enveloped the area. The skill's effect resonated through the realm, reviving the countless corpses that lay hidden. As the smoke began to clear, the Morning Grudge's form disintegrated, fading into embers. Where her body once stood, a treasure chest emerged from the dissipating haze, glinting faintly in the glow of the flames. Zhao Yi reverted to her humanoid form, her energy settling. A notification echoed in Lu Fan's mind, Zhao Yi had leveled up. He gave her an approving nod. Well done, he praised, a rare smile breaking through his stoic demeanor. Another notification followed, confirming that Lu Fan himself had increased level 5. Victory was theirs, though the challenges of the secret realm were far from over. As the portal shimmered into view, Suanji exhaled in relief. It's finally over, he muttered, his voice tinged with exhaustion. Zhao Jia, coughing from the lingering smoke, pointed out with irritation, about time. This whole ordeal was like endless walking. Meanwhile, Qin Kuei checked on Kair, asking, Are you all right? Kair nodded, though she looked visibly drained. Suddenly, a chilling sound interrupted their brief respite, the groaning and shuffling of the undead. Suanji and Zhao Jia snapped to attention, their faces pale as they realized the corpses in the village were rising once more. The zombies! They're back! Zhao Jia shouted, gripping his weapon tightly. Out of nowhere, Zhao Yi reappeared, her presence exuding dominance. Suanji stared, his eyes wide in disbelief. "What's that?" he asked, his voice trembling. Without hesitation, Zhao Yi activated her skill. Lava blaze flames erupted in a fiery torrent, engulfing the undead in a scorching inferno. The air was filled with the agonized screams of the zombies as they were reduced to ash. "That's the giant dragon?" Suanji stammered, still in shock. Qin Kuei, however, confirmed with a nod. "Yes, Zhao Yi took them down like it was nothing. We struggled so much, and she obliterated them effortlessly." Lu Fan approached, his tone calm yet authoritative. "Zhao Yi is the black dragon," he explained. "This is child's play for her." Turning to Qin Kuei, he added, "The boss has been defeated. There's no need to remain so tense. Once the rewards are distributed, we can prepare to leave." Lu Fan continued, "By the rules, I'll choose first. Any objections?" His gaze swept across the group. Qin Kuei quickly shook her head, responding, "No objections here. You've earned it." Lu Fan opened the chest, and a dazzling light poured out, momentarily blinding them. Inside lay an array of treasures. 1. The Holy Light Staff, a radiant weapon containing the Holy Light Seal, which allowed the wielder to bind enemies with beams of light. The duration of the binding depended on the user's spirit attribute. 2. Twilight, a mystical item with the light flow ability, enabling the creation of a protective barrier made from beams of light. 3. The Ring of Morning, an enchanted ring imbued with the morning aura, allowing the user to designate a target to bear an aura that inflicted resentment points with every attack. 4. The Class Change Scroll, a rare item that granted a chance for non-hidden classes to evolve into their superior hidden counterpart. Lu Fan reached into the chest and picked up the Class Change Scroll without hesitation. "I'll take this," he declared, his voice firm. Qin Kuei responded immediately, her tone both admiring and sincere. "There's no need to hold back on our account. You carried us through this. It's only right." As the group began preparing to leave the realm, the tension lifted, though their minds still reeled from the trials they had just survived. As per the rules, all the items in the chest technically belonged to Lu Fan, yet he made it clear that he wasn't trying to act noble. "It's not about pretending to be a gentleman," he explained. "The gear with spirit-related attributes suits you better. However, I truly need the Class Change Scroll." Qin Kuei, looking thoughtful, responded, "If it weren't for you, we might not have made it out alive." With a resolute expression, she extended the Ring of Morning toward him. "At least take this. You've earned it." Lu Fan hesitated for a moment before accepting. "All right," he said with a small smile. "I won't refuse then." Meanwhile, Suanji called out to the group, urging them to prepare for their return. As they began organizing, Qin Kuei couldn't help but reflect on Lu Fan. What else is he hiding, she wondered, her gaze lingering on him. He's so difficult to figure out. 4 hours later, as the evening settled over Zhonghai City, Lu Fan found himself in a small, bustling bun shop. Without warning, Han Qi rushed toward him, wrapping him in a tight embrace. "Lu Fan," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "That was far too dangerous. Just hearing what you've been through these past few days makes my heart race. I can't believe you encountered so much peril." Caught off guard, Lu Fan awkwardly patted her back. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked gently. "You should let go of me. I've been out in the wild for days, my clothes are filthy." But Han Qi only tightened her grip, tears streaming down her face. "You're not dirty," she cried. "You left without saying anything. I haven't been able to sleep for nights, afraid that it was all a dream. I feared I'd wake up, and you still wouldn't be back." Lu Fan's expression softened as guilt flickered in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said earnestly. "I shouldn't have left the city without talking to you first. But I promise, you don't need to worry anymore. I won't make you go through that again." Han Qi sniffled, wiping her tears. "All right," she whispered, finally loosening her hold. "I'll trust you." Turning her attention to Zhao Yi, Han Qi's tone brightened with awe. "I have to admit," she said, her voice tinged with amazement, "when I first saw you, I was so startled. I mean, who would have thought such a cute girl could be an incredibly powerful dragon?" Zhao Yi, standing tall in her humanoid form, let out a low, proud roar in response. The sound was both playful and imposing, bringing a warm smile to Lu Fan's face as the tension of their previous battles finally began to fade. Han Qi looked at Zhao Yi with concern. "You probably haven't had much to eat these past few days, right? Are you hungry?" she asked warmly. When Zhao Yi nodded eagerly, Han Qi smiled. Before she could head to the kitchen, Lu Fan called her over and handed her a scroll. "Here," he said, presenting the Class Change Scroll. "This was a reward I picked specifically for you after clearing the dungeon. If you use this, you could unlock a hidden class. You wouldn't have to stay tied to the bun shop anymore." Han Qi blinked in surprise but quickly shook her head. "This is way too valuable," she protested. "I can't accept something like this." Why don't we sell it instead? Lu Fan chuckled softly. I left the equipment and weapons for Qin Kuei. If we sold this scroll, we'd only get enough to buy a couple of items, and honestly, I don't need more gear for the big exam. I'm already well prepared. He continued, besides, I'm not exactly short on money or equipment. To prove his point, he opened his account on the Dragon Garden Zhonghai Silver Bank, revealing an impressive balance. Han Chi's eyes widened in astonishment. How? She stammered. I sold a lot of materials during this trip, Lu Fan explained. And don't forget, Qin Kuei promised a reward of 100,000 as well. Trust me, we won't have to worry about money anymore. Han Chi was visibly moved by his assurance, but she hesitated. Lu Fan placed a hand on her shoulder, his tone firm yet kind. Take the scroll. It's best if you use it right away. After a moment's pause, Han Chi nodded. All right, I'll trust you. She unfolded the scroll, and it emitted a radiant light that engulfed her. As the scroll disintegrated into glowing fragments, Han Chi stood still, her eyes closed as the system processed her class change. When the light faded, Lu Fan approached her with curiosity. Did it work? Han Chi's face lit up as she nodded. It worked. I've become an enchantment chef, a superior hidden class for chefs. Lu Fan raised an eyebrow. Enchantment chef? What's special about it? With excitement, Han Chi explained, I now have a skill called enchantment cooking. I can create dishes that grant various buffs. It's amazing. And with my existing cooking skills, the buffs will likely have high additional attributes. Lu Fan grinned. That sounds incredible. You'll make us unstoppable? Han Chi laughed, a light blush dusting her cheeks. You always know how to make someone feel good with your words. Suddenly, Lu Fan's expression shifted as he glanced around. Wait, where's Zhao Yi? She was just here a moment ago. Meanwhile, Zhao Yi had fallen asleep in the kitchen, her small figure curled up near a tray of buns she had been nibbling on during the night. Her peaceful snores echoed faintly, a stark contrast to the tension brewing elsewhere. In the Qin family villa's study, Qin Shanhai was deep in conversation with Qin Kuei. His expression was serious as he asked, is it true, the rumors about Lu Fan being a dragon tamer? Did he really summon a powerful black dragon to save everyone? Qin Kuei nodded solemnly. Yes, it's true. If it hadn't been for him, we wouldn't have made it out alive. I was too stubborn, and my recklessness almost got everyone killed. She paused, her tone shifting to one of awe. But Lu Fan, his strength is on another level. We both have hidden occupations, but the gap between us is as vast as the difference between a firefly and the moon. Qin Shanhai leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful look on his face. Did you tell anyone about the dragon? Qin Kuei shook her head firmly. No, I promised Lu Fan when we returned that I wouldn't speak of it outside the Qin family. A slight smile tugged at Qin Shanhai's lips. Good. If word about that dragon got out, I can't even begin to imagine the chaos it would cause. The people who covet such power would stop at nothing. Qin Kuei hesitated before speaking again. Father, Lu Fan saved all of us. Do you have any thoughts about his dragon? Qin Shanhai chuckled, shaking his head. Do you really think I'm that kind of person? No, my thoughts are elsewhere. But tell me, how do you plan to thank him for saving your life? Qin Kuei straightened, her voice steady. When I invited him to join the team, I promised him a reward of 100,000. I plan to honor that. Good. But take a purple tier Tong card as well. Personally thank him tomorrow. He deserves more than just the reward you promised. Qin Kuei agreed but then asked, aren't you curious to meet him yourself? Don't you want to see the dragon tamer in person? Qin Shanhai sighed, a trace of regret in his tone. If I had the chance, I'd certainly like to meet him. But I have other matters to attend to. The princess of the Tizi kingdom is arriving in Zhonghai City today. Her visit is officially for studying, but with the big exam approaching, I doubt that's the real reason. There's too much at stake, and her presence likely signals something bigger. The next morning, Princess Jinju of the Tizi kingdom arrived in Zhonghai City, accompanied by her trusted aide, Kuei Hongtai. The two made their way through the bustling streets, eventually arriving at the small bun shop. Standing before the humble establishment, Princess Jinju gazed at it curiously, her elegant figure out of place amidst the simplicity of the surroundings. Kuei Hongtai knocked on the door, and after a moment, Han Qi answered, peeking out cautiously. Seeing the two unfamiliar faces, she offered a polite smile. Are you here to buy buns? I'm afraid we're not open yet. Princess Jinju wrinkled her nose as she stood outside the modest bun shop, her disdain evident. She turned to her attendant, Kuei Hongtai, and asked sharply, are you certain this is the place? It looks more like a dump. Kuei Hongtai nodded affirmatively. According to the investigation, this is indeed where he resides. Han Qi, noticing the exchange, stepped forward hesitantly. Who are you? What do you want here? She asked, her tone polite but firm. Her question was ignored as Kue Hongtai forcefully pushed the door open, sending Han Chi stumbling backward with a yelp. She landed on the floor with a thud, pain flashing across her face. Without a hint of concern, Princess Jinju stepped inside, her sharp eyes scanning the room with clear disdain. "How filthy," she muttered before turning her gaze to Han Chi. "You. I'm looking for someone. Do you know a man named Lu Fan?" Before Han Chi could respond, a voice called from the staircase. "Who's asking for me?" Lu Fan descended the stairs, his expression shifting from curiosity to concern when he saw Han Chi on the ground, clutching her arm. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. "Han Chi, are you all right?" "What happened?" he asked, helping her to her feet. Han Chi brushed herself off, trying to muster a reassuring smile despite the pain. "I'm fine," she said softly. "Just a little startled." Princess Jinju, her gaze now fixed on Lu Fan, spoke with an air of authority. "So, you're Lu Fan. I've come to see you personally." Lu Fan raised an eyebrow. "A princess? Looking for me?" He glanced between her and Kue Hongtai. "And who might you be?" Kue Hongtai straightened, his tone formal. "This is Princess Jinju of the Taisai Kingdom, and I am her attendant." Princess Jinju took a step forward, a smirk playing on her lips. "I've come to offer you an extraordinary opportunity. Something that only someone like you would appreciate." Lu Fan folded his arms, his gaze skeptical. "An opportunity, you say? What kind of opportunity?" Princess Jinju let out a soft laugh, her eyes gleaming with amusement. "Being a dragon tamer must be exhausting, isn't it? But worry not. I've brought something that will change your life." With a dramatic flourish, she revealed a gleaming dragon egg, cradled delicately in her hands. Its surface shimmered with iridescent hues, radiating an aura of immense power. Lu Fan's eyes widened in surprise, but he remained silent as she continued. "This is a dragon egg, something so rare that it's said to be the only one of its kind in the world. I acquired it from the legendary armored dragon's lair, and now, I'm offering it to you." His gaze flickered between the egg and the princess. "And what's the catch?" he asked cautiously. Princess Jinju's smirk deepened as she stepped closer. "It's simple. The egg is yours, if you agree to my terms." Lu Fan's jaw tightened. "What are these terms?" Her tone turned cold, laced with authority. "You'll become my slave. From this moment forward, you will obey my every command without question. You'll be mine to command, and you must never defy me." Lu Fan's expression hardened. "A slave," he repeated, his voice sharp. Princess Jinju laughed lightly, clearly unbothered by his reaction. "Is that so hard to believe? You should be honored. For someone like you who's likely never seen such a powerful dragon egg before, I understand it might feel overwhelming." She held the egg out slightly, her voice dropping to a taunting whisper. "So, what do you say, Lu Fan? Are you too afraid to seize this chance?" Lu Fan examined the attributes of the armored dragon egg with a discerning eye. "So, it's a land dragon," he remarked, his tone neutral. "That's a rank even lower than a wyvern. Its endurance might be noteworthy, but aside from that, there's nothing special about it." Princess Jinju's expression twisted in disbelief. She snapped, momentarily losing her composed demeanor. Her irritation deepened as Lu Fan continued. "The attributes are decent, sure. But if you're offering this to impress me, you might want to reconsider your strategy." His blunt critique left Princess Jinju speechless. For a moment, her mind raced, wondering if Lu Fan truly understood the significance of a dragon egg. "Does he not grasp what this means for a dragon tamer?" she thought, frustration evident in her narrowed eyes. While the tension in the room grew, Han Chi, standing nearby, couldn't contain her dismay. "How can you act like this? Barging into someone's home and making these demands?" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with indignation. Lu Fan turned to her, his tone calm but firm. "Don't worry about them, Han Chi. I'll deal with this." Princess Jinju's eyes glinted with superiority as she turned her attention back to Lu Fan. "Let's not waste words. I'm right, aren't I? A dragon tamer without a dragon is nothing but a glorified title. However," she added with a sly smile, "if you accept my offer, you'll transcend mediocrity. You'll become the strongest dragon tamer in history, one that's never been recorded before. Doesn't the mere thought of that excite you?" Lu Fan tilted his head slightly, considering her words with a faint smirk. "Exciting? I'll admit, the idea sounds thrilling," he said, his tone laced with sarcasm. Princess Jinju's confidence surged, only for it to shatter with his next words. "But I'm not interested." Her jaw dropped, her voice faltering. "What?" she said, almost in a whisper. "Do you even understand what you're refusing? This is an opportunity to make history. You're declining a chance to be remembered forever, to become my servant and achieve greatness." Lu Fan's expression turned cold. "If you've come here to propose that nonsense, then I suggest you leave. I have no interest in your so-called opportunity, your dragon egg, or, least of all, being your servant. The idea is laughable. Kuei Hongtai stepped forward, his face dark with anger. Watch your tongue, you insolent fool, he barked. The princess has personally graced you with a chance to rise above your pitiful station, and you dare to speak so disrespectfully? Do you even know who you're talking to? But Lu Fan remained unshaken, his calm gaze meeting the attendant's fury with an air of unbothered confidence, as if their threats were nothing more than the buzzing of an annoying insect. Lu Fan chuckled mockingly at the mention of respect and servitude. Respect? Servant? Are you serious? He scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. Don't make me laugh. I'd never bow to anyone, let alone to someone like you. Kuei Hongtai's face darkened with fury at Lu Fan's blatant defiance. Gritting his teeth, he stepped forward, but Princess Jinju raised a hand to silence him. Kuei Hongtai, she commanded coolly, her gaze fixed on Lu Fan, teach him a lesson. Show him what happens to those who disrespect the Princess of Taisai. Kuei Hongtai immediately nodded, his anger simmering just below the surface. As he moved to comply, Han Chi, who had been watching with growing anxiety, quickly intervened. Please, wait, she exclaimed, stepping between them. This is all just a misunderstanding. There's no need for violence. Lu Fan truly doesn't want anything to do with your offer, so can't we just let this go? Her plea fell on deaf ears. Kuei Hongtai sneered and shoved her aside with a forceful strike. Move, you insolent commoner, he barked, his voice full of contempt. Han Chi cried out as she stumbled backward, landing hard on the ground. Lu Fan's eyes narrowed sharply, his expression darkening as he rushed to her side. Han Chi, he called, kneeling next to her. Are you hurt? Where does it hurt? Tell me. Han Chi, despite her obvious pain, managed a weak smile and shook her head. I'm fine, she murmured, trying to reassure him. Really, it's nothing. Kuei Hongtai sneered again, his voice dripping with arrogance. Pathetic commoners daring to defy royalty, he spat. If you won't bow willingly, then we'll do this the hard way. As Kuei Hongtai raised his fist to strike again, Han Chi gasped, noticing a sudden change in the air. Lu Fan, she cried, trying to warn him. But Kuei Hongtai's attack never landed. Instead, a fiery aura erupted around Lu Fan, the sheer intensity of it forcing Kuei Hongtai to stagger back in shock. Blood trickled down Kuei Hongtai's face from a sudden gash, and his eyes widened as he realized the situation had shifted dramatically. Lu Fan rose slowly, his expression cold and deadly. In his hand, a gleaming dagger appeared, its edge catching the light as it pointed directly at Kuei Hongtai's throat. You dared to lay a hand on my family, Lu Fan said, his voice low and filled with unyielding menace. For that, I'll kill you. Han Chi grabbed Lu Fan's arm desperately, her voice trembling. Please, Lu Fan, don't do this. Don't act rashly. He's not worth it. Kuei Hongtai stood frozen, his earlier arrogance replaced by fear as he stared into Lu Fan's eyes. The fiery aura around Lu Fan burned hotter, the sheer pressure of it suffocating. Princess Jinju, who had been watching with growing alarm, finally found her voice. Kuei Hongtai, she snapped, her voice laced with anger. What are you doing? I told you to teach him a lesson, not to stand there like an idiot. Kuei Hongtai barely managed to stammer, his fear evident. There's something wrong with him, he muttered, unable to tear his gaze away from Lu Fan's dagger. Lu Fan, still holding his weapon steady, finally turned his attention to Princess Jinju. Lu Fan stood tall, his eyes sharp with fury. I don't care which royal family you belong to, he growled, his voice firm and cold. Princess or not, take your trash and leave. And keep your mouth shut while you're at it. Princess Jinju's face contorted with indignation, but before she could retort, Lu Fan's hand moved like a blur, delivering a stinging slap across her cheek. She stumbled back, clutching her face in shock. A gasp escaped from Kuei Hongtai as he stared in disbelief. How dare a lowly commoner lay hands on a princess, he roared, drawing his blade in a swift motion and charging at Lu Fan. But Lu Fan remained unfazed. With a casual yet precise movement, he intercepted Kuei Hongtai's blade, effortlessly deflecting the attack. The clash echoed sharply, and with a calculated twist, Lu Fan disarmed him, sending the blade clattering to the ground. Kuei Hongtai, startled and outmatched, scrambled to Princess Jinju's side. Your Highness. Are you all right? He asked frantically. Princess Jinju, still fuming, slapped Kuei Hongtai across the face without hesitation. Do I look all right to you, you useless fool? She snapped, her voice dripping with venom. You couldn't even protect me, let alone deal with him. Useless trash. She glared at Kuei Hongtai, her frustration boiling over. Kill him, she ordered, her voice shaking with anger. I don't care if we never find another dragon tamer. I want him dead. Kuei Hongtai, humiliated but obedient, clenched his fists and nodded. As you command, Your Highness, he replied, gritting his teeth as he prepared to attack again. Meanwhile, far from the chaotic scene, Xiaoyi stirred awake to the sound of Lu Fan's phone ringing. Groggily, she reached for it, but it kept ringing unanswered. The caller was Qin Kuei, her voice tinged with confusion as she muttered to herself, strange. He's not answering. This is definitely the number we exchanged after we got back to the city. Did I dial it wrong? Determined to find him, she decided to search for his house in person. As Qin Kuei walked through the streets, a deafening explosion suddenly erupted in front of her, stopping her in her tracks. The ground trembled, and dust filled the air as bystanders began to panic. What's going on? One of them shouted. Is someone fighting nearby? Through the chaos, Kuei Hongtai groaned in pain as he was violently flung out of the battle zone. His body skidded across the ground before coming to an abrupt halt, blood dripping from his lip. The clash had escalated beyond anything he could have imagined, and it was clear that Lu Fan was far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. As the commotion outside the shop grew louder, a bystander whispered, "Looks like some foreigner is causing trouble again." Another muttered in agreement, "Always stirring things up around here." Princess Jinju, hearing the murmurs, turned to the crowd with a sneer. "What are you lowly people gawking at?" she snapped. "Get out of here before I make you." Kuei Hongtai, battered and humiliated, clenched his fists as he observed Lu Fan. "His attributes, they're not low," he muttered under his breath, frustration mounting. "No wonder I'm struggling." Princess Jinju scoffed, her tone laced with disdain. "Struggling? Against someone like him?" She shot Kuei Hongtai a scornful glare. "You're absolutely useless. How can you lose to a dragon tamer with such mediocre abilities?" She took a step forward, her eyes glowing with a sinister light. "Fine. I'll deal with this myself." As she extended her hands, a dark, oppressive aura began to swirl around her, growing in intensity with every passing second. The air grew heavy, and Lu Fan narrowed his eyes, analyzing her energy. "This spell," he murmured. "It's nothing like Qin Kuei's power. It's the polar opposite." His gaze hardened. "She's hiding her true class." Meanwhile, Qin Kuei appeared from around the corner, her face etched with concern. "Lu Fan. What's going on here?" she called out, rushing toward him. Lu Fan turned to her, his expression a mix of relief and alarm. "Qin Kuei? What are you doing here?" But before she could answer, the dark aura emanating from Princess Jinju enveloped Kuei Hongtai, transforming him. His eyes turned wild, and his body emitted a surge of raw energy that sent shockwaves in all directions. The sheer force pushed both Lu Fan and Qin Kuei back. Kuei Hongtai's laughter rang out, now low and guttural, as he flexed his newly empowered body. "A monster?" Lu Fan muttered, his eyes narrowing. Princess Jinju smirked triumphantly. "Not so useless now, is he?" she quipped, her tone dripping with mockery. "Finish him off, Kuei Hongtai. Make him regret ever crossing me." Kuei Hongtai let out a maniacal laugh as he raised his weapon, now glowing with an unnatural energy. "You're going to die, Lu Fan," he roared, charging forward with an overwhelming speed and power. Lu Fan, keeping his composure, stepped back and assessed the situation. "This is bad," he thought. "His attack power has skyrocketed. I'll have to use Dragon's Inspiration combined with Dragon Claw to stand a chance." Just as Kuei Hongtai lunged forward, Qin Kuei called out, "Lu Fan. Let me help you." She stepped closer, but Lu Fan immediately raised a hand. "No," he said firmly. "Stay back and take care of Han Qi inside the shop. She needs you more right now." Kuei Hongtai's crazed laughter filled the air as he closed in. "No one's saving you now, Lu Fan," he bellowed. Princess Jinju folded her arms, her smirk widening. "Yes, that's it. End him and relieve my anger," she commanded. Kuei Hongtai grinned, his voice booming. "With Her Highness's augmentation, I'm invincible." But his overconfidence wavered when Xiaoyi suddenly stepped out of the shop. "Xiaoyi." Lu Fan's voice was sharp, filled with both surprise and worry. Kuei Hongtai froze momentarily, his eyes narrowing. A sinister smile crept across Xiaoyi's face. "Perfect," he muttered, his gaze shifting between Lu Fan and Xiaoyi. "This just got a whole lot more interesting." As chaos erupted, Princess Jinju's face turned pale, her body trembling as she stared at Xiaoyi. A chilling thought crossed her mind. Could it be that Xiaoyi is an actual dragon? Her confidence wavered, and fear took root. Lu Fan stepped forward, his tone cold and resolute. "Now, it's my turn," he declared, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Xiaoyi unleashed an earth-shaking roar, a sound so powerful it sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. Princess Jinju and Kuei Hongtai froze in terror, their bodies locked in place as panic consumed them. With terrifying speed, Xiaoyi lunged at Kuei Hongtai, slamming him into the ground with brutal force. The impact echoed through the area like thunder, creating a massive shockwave that sent Princess Jinju tumbling backward. She landed hard, gasping in pain, her mind racing. How? How could this creature overpower Kue Hongtai in a single strike? Kue Hongtai coughed violently, struggling to lift himself from the crater Xiaoyi had created. Help me, save me. He croaked weakly, his voice filled with desperation. Princess Jinju scrambled to her feet, her hands glowing as she began charging a skill. Hold on, you useless fool, she barked, her voice laced with frustration and fear. But before her skill could take effect, Zeoi roared again, the sheer power of its voice resonating with an ancient authority. A black aura surged forward, carrying the might of the Black Dragon bloodline. Princess Jinju's skill shattered mid-cast, leaving her powerless. Kue Hongtai screamed as Zeoi tightened its grip on him. Please, let me go, he begged, his voice cracking with terror. Without mercy, Zeoi flung Kue Hongtai across the battlefield. His body crashed to the ground with a sickening thud, leaving him groaning in agony. Forgive me, Princess Jinju. He muttered weakly, his spirit completely broken. Princess Jinju stood frozen, her mind spiraling as realization dawned upon her. This strength, it must belong to a true dragon. Her eyes darted toward Zeoi, a mix of fear and disbelief clouding her expression. The Jin family may possess dragon eggs, but this proves there are real dragons still out there. Breaking her trance, Lu Fan stepped closer, his voice calm yet taunting. Princess Jinju, he called, his words heavy with irony, weren't you going to kill me to vent your anger? What's stopping you now? Princess Jinju staggered back, her bravado completely gone. She raised a trembling hand. Stay back, she cried, her voice shaking. Don't come any closer. Her eyes darted between Lu Fan and Zeoi, and for the first time, the once proud princess realized she had no control over the situation. Princess Jinju's voice rose in fury, her regal demeanor masking her growing unease. Lu Fan, you dared to attack my attendant, humiliate me, and inflict such serious injuries. Do you realize the consequences of your actions? You've made yourself an enemy of the Taiki kingdom. Lu Fan chuckled coldly, his expression unfazed. Oh, trying to scare me now, are you? He retorted, his tone dripping with sarcasm. You sent your man to harm my family, princess. So tell me, what do you think I'm going to do about it? Princess Jinju's confidence wavered for a brief moment, but she held her ground. And what exactly do you want? She asked, narrowing her eyes. Lu Fan stepped forward, his voice steady and menacing. Don't start throwing around titles like Princess of the Taiki Kingdom as if that means anything here, he said. Behind him, Zeoi began gathering energy, her presence radiating an ominous power. Even if you were a god, Lu Fan declared, his gaze piercing, it wouldn't matter. I'll pay you back for everything you've done, with interest. Before Princess Jinju could respond, a voice called out, breaking the tension. Lu Fan, stop. The shout belonged to Qin Shanhai, who approached urgently. Stay back. Qin Ke shouted, rushing to intercept him. It's too dangerous. Zeoi snarled, her energy crackling like a storm about to break, but Lu Fan raised a hand to her. Zeoi, enough, he commanded firmly. The dragon hesitated, her fiery aura flickering, but ultimately obeyed. Lu Fan's blade moved swiftly, slicing through Princess Jinju's staff with precision. She flinched as the weapon fell in two, her confidence shattered alongside it. Meanwhile, Zeoyi's charged fireball dissipated as she snapped her jaws shut, allowing Qin Shanhai to approach unharmed. His griffin landed gracefully, and he dismounted with urgency, his eyes scanning the battlefield. Qin Shanhai fixed Lu Fan with a stern expression. This has gone far enough? Qin Shanhai glanced around, concern etched on his face. Lu Fan, there are many residents in the area. You should quickly take your dragon back before things escalate further. His voice carried both authority and a hint of awe as he added, true dragons really are in a league of their own. Even standing nearby, the sheer pressure is overwhelming. Before Lu Fan could respond, Qin Kue hurriedly called out, her voice urgent. Lu Fan, please, just listen to my father. Trust us on this, all right? She looked at him pleadingly. Zeoi let out a low, rumbling roar, but Lu Fan raised his hand firmly, commanding her to stop. The dragon reluctantly obeyed, her imposing aura settling. Qin Kue stepped closer and gently suggested, come with me, Lu Fan. Let's not make things worse. Meanwhile, Qin Shanhai approached Princess Jinju, his brow furrowing with concern. Are you all right, princess? He asked, scanning her for injuries. I just got back from picking you up at the airport. I didn't expect to find you in a situation like this. Qin Shanhai continued, the Qin family's driver will be here soon to take you to the hospital. You should rest and get treated. His tone was polite but firm, leaving no room for argument. Han Qi, standing nearby, noticed the interaction. She turned to Qin Kue, whispering, It seems like your father knows Princess Jinju. Maybe, there's a way to resolve all of this peacefully. Qin Kuei nodded thoughtfully and made a quick call, hoping to de-escalate the situation. Lu Fan, however, folded his arms, his expression dark. I doubt Princess Jinju will let this go so easily, he remarked, his voice edged with skepticism. Qin Shanhai, overhearing Lu Fan's comment, chuckled lightly. I understand what you mean, he said, his tone teasing. You certainly have a talent for stirring up trouble. This is quite the mess you've gotten us all into. Lu Fan sighed and dipped his head slightly. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Sorry for dragging you into this. Qin Shanhai waved off the apology. Don't be. Given the circumstances, none of this can be pinned entirely on you. Let's just focus on resolving it before it spirals further. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.